Chapter 5 Run. And here is the chapter art. It had been 3 days since Kaoru and I met for lunch at the cafe. I was sitting on my bed, hugging my knees to my chest and fiddling with my cell phone. My palms were sweating a bit despite the AC, perhaps a sign that I was more nervous than I realized. I opened my address book and scrolled down to Kaoru's name, then took a deep breath. Come on, you can do this. I pressed the call button, then I waited. 3 days prior, I'd purchased the latest issue of Journal Monthly from the local bookstore first thing in the morning, and learned that I'd lost the spring competition. Though, in all honesty, I had no delusions about my work being award-worthy to begin with, so it wasn't a huge letdown. In a way, it came as a small relief, allowing me to shift my focus and devote myself fully to the Urashima Tunnel expedition with no lingering doubts. I believe we switched perspectives here. Shortly thereafter, I received a phone call from someone who introduced themselves as an editor for the magazine. After briefly verifying their credentials, he offered his condolences to me for not winning the contest, but said that he had felt a spark of something in my work. It wasn't the most specific appraisal to be sure, yet it made me do a stupid little happy dance. That emotional high didn't last long, as he proceeded to rattle off a laundry list of ways in which my submission was sorely lacking. You can't do X, you should have done Y for this part, why in the world didn't you do Z, etc. I tried my best to answer his questions, discombobulated though I was. In the end, he suggested we meet up in person sometime to discuss specifics, then hung up. The phone call lasted more than 30 minutes, yet for me it felt like the blink of an eye. Then it hit me, I had a choice to make. Would I pursue this new opportunity and work toward creating manga professionally? Or would I go into the Urashima Tunnel to seek a greater purpose in life regardless? It was a difficult conundrum, to be sure. After going back and forth in my head over and over to no avail, I decided to look to Kaoru for guidance. That didn't help either, unfortunately. All it did was postpone the expedition, and now I was extra determined to come to a final decision before I delayed him any further. I spent every waking hour deliberating with myself. 3 days later, on the morning of August 4th, I finally made up my mind. I would venture into the Urashima Tunnel after all. I couldn't leave Kaoru in the lurch. I jumped into action. First, I called the editor and let him know I really appreciated the offer, but that I had to respectfully decline due to personal reasons. I was prepared to have to explain myself a fair bit, but he just said okay, without asking why. I was grateful that the call went smoothly, though it made me wonder if he'd been feeding me a line with all the talk about my potential, which was a pretty crappy feeling, to be honest. At least now I had nothing left to have misgivings about. I wanted to share this news with Kaoru as soon as possible, so I took a deep breath and dialed him up, but then... We're sorry, but the number you have dialed is currently unavailable. Either it has been disconnected or it is somewhere beyond the reach of his local service provider. So either his cell phone was dead or he was out of range. Given how terrible cell service generally was in Kozaki, I tended to assume it was the latter. My phone had lost signal while I was riding the bus down the main drag, so it wasn't all that uncommon. Yet, for whatever reason, I felt unusually apprehensive. I waited 3 minutes, then dialed again. We're sorry, but the number you have dialed is currently unavailable. Either has been disconnected. I waited another 3 minutes. We're sorry, but the number you have dialed is currently unavailable either. I waited 30. We're sorry, but the number you have dialed. I stood from my bed. No way he wouldn't. Worst case scenario oozed one by one from my brain, slowly filling my head with a flood of doubts. The pit of my stomach tightened as each breath grew shallower than the last. I called Koharu as fast as I could. Hey, what's up? Kawasaki? do you know where Tono-kun's house is? If so, could you tell me? Huh? Yeah, I know where he lives. Why do you ask? Sorry, can't explain right now. Could you just tell me? It's extremely time sensitive. Sure, no problem. I guess I'll text you his address and you can go from there? Cool, thanks. I hung up, and a follow-up text from Kaoru came pretty quickly. It had Kaoru's address as well as a line underneath saying she was worried about me and that we should talk soon. I hated not offering her more of an explanation, but I really didn't have time. I grabbed my wallet, slipped on my sandals in the entryway, and dashed out the front door. As I ran down the hallway of the condominium, I checked my phone to see when the next train to the station by Kaoru's house would run. Looked like at least an hour. God, I hate living in the sticks. I grabbed my bike from the bike lot and straddled one leg over it, then sped off in the direction of Kaoru's neighborhood. It was a straight shot for a while, followed by a steep uphill climb. While I was generally quite confident in my athletic abilities, these hilly country roads could be pretty grueling at times. The uneven pavement slowly wore away my stamina, and sweat poured down my entire body. My hair refused to stay out of my eyes as I pedaled up the steep incline. When I finally reached the top, I could see all the way across the open ocean. It was a gorgeous view, but I had no time to enjoy it. So, I bombed down the opposite side of the hill. After passing an old fire station with a worn red emergency light over the garage, I spotted a big old-fashioned house. That was a place. I parked my bike at the edge of the property and put down the kickstand, then ran to ring the bell. After about a minute of waiting, an older gentleman answered the door with one hand while scratching his lower back with the other. I assumed this was Kaoru's father, though the two looked absolutely nothing alike. Hi there, can I help you? He asked. Hello, sir, I'm one of your son's classmates. Is he around? The man ceased his back scratching and gave me a suspicious look. No, I'm afraid he's out of the house at the moment. How long has he been gone? Since day before yesterday, I think. I felt the blood drain from my face, and in its place came another wave of anxiety and urgency. Where did he go? Please, you have to tell me. Hell if I know. Figure he's staying the night at a friend's house. He's been doing that an awful lot lately. Alright. Thank you for your help, sir. I bowed quickly before dashing back to hop on my bike once more. If he's been gone for 2 days, that can only mean one thing. I tried my best to shake that harrowing thought from my mind. There was no point in stressing myself out even more. I just had to hurry and pray. As I pedaled as fast as I could down the winding roads towards the Urashima Tunnel, I felt a dampness on my cheek, thinking it was a stray bead of sweat. I wiped it away, only for it to quickly be replaced by a dozen more rapid-fire droplets. Oh God, it was raining, and here it had been so pleasant out only a minute ago. Hey, I don't know who you are, but I'll be focused on reading this stream. I'll still read chat messages, but I'll respond very infrequently. The light sprinkled quickly turned to a full-on shower, and I was soaked from head to toe. With each rotation of the wheels, I felt the extremely unpleasant sensation of my wet clothes adhering to and then peeling away from my skin over and over again. Then, before I knew it, I was crying. Though I wasn't entirely sure why, just couldn't hold it all in any longer, I guess. Yet still, I pedaled onward as fast as my legs would take me, even though they were on fire. Even after it started to hurt so bad that I thought I'd sprain both ankles. I just kept pedaling. Come on, Tono-kun, please. Hey, Kine. Uh, Again, I won't be reading chat that much. I'm reading 90 pages of this book this two nights, so I'll be pretty focused on reading. But hey, oh, hey, oh. Y'all can just chat and whatever. I'll still read chat. I just won't respond that much. After what felt like ages, I finally stood at the entrance to the Urashima Tunnel. I had thrown my bike to the ground farther back down the road and run the rest of the way barefoot, my sandals having fallen off somewhere along the way. The bottoms of my feet throbbed in pain from being stabbed by hundreds of tiny pebbles. I had to reach Kaoru as soon as possible, so I swallowed the pain and ran into the tunnel regardless. Hey, Deidre. A little ways in, I noticed a glass bottle lying on the ground. Upon further inspection, I saw a little paper note inside. A message in a bottle? I could only assume Kaoru had left it for me. So, I picked it up and extracted the cork. Sure enough, it was a few sheets of folded notebook paper, all filled in with pencil. I wiped the rain and sweat from my hands, on my clothes so as to not ruin the paper, then started reading the letter from the top, slowly and carefully. To Anzu Hanashiro. If you're reading this letter and your name is not Anzu Hanashiro, please put it back in the bottle and return to where you found it. Well, that being said, I can't imagine anyone but her would wander in here and stumble upon it, so I'll continue under an assumption that the person reading this is, in fact, Anzu Hanashiro. First things first, I owe you an apology. I'm really sorry for heading into the tunnel without you. You probably feel pretty betrayed right now. Hell, I wouldn't blame you if you never forgave me. But if you could at least read this letter all the way through to the end before you write me off forever, I'd really appreciate it. Now then, I'm sure you're wondering why I decided to leave you behind and enter the tunnel all by myself. So I'll tell you right now. The short answer is, I think you really need to pursue this manga opportunity right away. Whatever it is you think you might find in here, you don't really need it. What you really need is to make a name for yourself as a manga artist ASAP. That story you wrote was riveting, and it deserves to be read by a much wider audience than just me. I'll admit, I was a little surprised at first to hear that they were ready to assign you your own editor, but honestly, with how good you are, they'd be downright stupid not to. You deserve every bit of this, I really mean that. But you know better than I do that manga trends change rapidly with the times, right? Pretty much anything that's popular today will feel dated in 4 or 5 years. And it's hard to tell whether something that resonate with people today would still be popular much further down the line. I feel like the average reader's tastes and sensibilities fluctuate and mature along with the industry as a whole. Not that I'm an expert in anything, mind you. My point is, I really think you need to hit the ground running and make your big debut as soon as possible, as you possibly can. On that, I'm all but certain. If you really feel that manga is your true calling in life, then you shouldn't waste any more time chasing fantasies like me. You got the talent, your dream's right there for the taking. On that note, there's one thing I'd like to say. You told me a while back that your whole motivation for exploring that Urashima tunnel was because you wanted to be someone extraordinary. Remember? And well, if that's really your dream, then I'm not gonna stand here and spit all over it. To be honest though, I'm not sure you really need to be out here chasing the extraordinary for the sake of it, because you strike me as the type of girl who's totally capable of enjoying life and finding fulfillment in all the normal ways too. Granted, I get that we've only known each other for a single month, but I still feel like I got to know you pretty damn well in that short period of time. When you clung to my shirt for dear life that first time we explored the tunnel at night, I got to see how scared and vulnerable you can be. When you showed me your manga and I gushed to you about how incredible it was, I got to see how ecstatic you can be when you realize you created something with genuine artistic worth. When the three of us went to the festival together, I got to see how much fun you can be when you let your hair down and enjoy yourself. And when I told you how pretty I think you are, which I meant by the way, I got to see how adorable and red in the face you got when you're embarrassed. Do you want to know the first thought that popped into my mind each and every one of these times? Wow, she really is just an ordinary girl deep down. Yes, I realize that to you, that's probably the single greatest insult imaginable. God forbid someone feel content with being normal, right? But like I said above, I'm really not trying to spit all over your dreams here. I want you to think long and hard about this stuff, is all. About what you really want out of life, I mean. If you do take my advice and decide not to come in here, I want you to know that I don't expect you to wait for me. I want you to make a ton of new friends, live your life to the fullest, and laugh so hard you get ab cramps every single day. I want you to write the manga of your dreams and let the whole world see what an incredible storyteller you are. And when I finally make it out of here, I hope to see your name listed right up there alongside the all-time greats. Trust me, when I say I genuinely, wholeheartedly cannot wait to see what wondrous world you come up with. Finally, I'd like to say one last thing. In case you're still on the fence, you're already the most extraordinary person I've ever met, Anashiro. And yeah, I realize that's not really the same thing as having your name go down in history. But maybe the name Anzu Hanashiro doesn't have to mean something to each and every person who ever lives. Maybe it could be enough for it to mean the world to just one. I checked my wristwatch as I ran down the corridor. 18 minutes past midnight. I'd made a point of stepping through the first torii at exactly midnight, which meant I'd been in tunnel time for just under 20 minutes. Nearly a month in real world time. Out there, my summer vacation was over. I assume Anzu had probably read my letter by now, too, given that she was a much faster runner than I was. The fact that I hadn't heard her chasing me was pretty much proof positive that she'd taken my advice and decided to not come inside the tunnel, which was a relief. A huge relief. I'm sorry, Hanashiro. Sorry for forcing you to make such a painful decision. I don't know how I'll ever make it up to you. I know you have feelings for me, I can tell. I can also tell that I'm falling for you too. But your feelings for me are different. They're a product of a misguided desire to play the role of tragic heroine by proxy. You crave the drama and emotional intensity you feel is lacking in your life, and you think I can provide fulfillment or growth for you in that regard. As someone who's experienced a lot of loss of his own, but I can't give you that. I literally do not have it. If you really want to be someone extraordinary, don't waste your time getting involved with a hopeless wreck like me. Just focus on being the best version of you that you can be. Don't go hunting for supernatural shortcuts or a tragic backstory that will earn you fast notoriety or cheap sympathy. You gotta buckle down and put it in the work to climb that ladder like everyone else. I know you hate doing things the normal way, but I can promise the view from the top will be that much sweeter when you feel like you've truly earned it. And you will reach the top. I know you will. I mean, look at how long you've been creating your own manga, and without ever sharing any of it with anybody before you met me. I'm sure there had to have been times when you felt discouraged because the story wasn't coming together and thought about putting down that pencil for good. Or maybe you really do love drawing with all your heart and you never once considered giving up on it no matter what the rest of the world might say. Either way, you didn't give up on that dream, and here you are today. Having your work officially recognized by industry professionals, that to me seems pretty goddamn extraordinary. Far more so than stumbling on a magic tunnel could ever be, and way more meaningful to boot. So please, Anashiro, don't let this opportunity go to waste. Live your life while you can, because tomorrow is never a given, especially when you have a chance to be someone right here today. Go out there and live like you mean it. And no matter what you do, don't ever end up like me. Total time elapsed 1 hour 25 minutes. Outside 141 days. I stopped dead in my tracks. What the? Just a little farther ahead I saw the tunnel curve upward at a steep incline. It was still a straight shot, so there was no real cause for hesitation. And my calves were already wobbling beneath me like rickety stilts. I couldn't afford to pull a ligament or something at this stage in the game, so I decided to take a 5-minute breather to be safe. I hunkered down on the ground and pulled my thermos from my backpack to take a good, long swig of water. I had to have run at least 10 clicks, so realistically, I could have come out the other side of the tunnel. The fact that I still couldn't see the exit seemed to suggest that there was some space-time shenanigans afoot. I felt like I was making a ton of forward progress, but in all honesty, there was no telling if I was even a tenth of the way through the tunnel yet. Interestingly, this time around, I had yet to encounter any strange thing from my past that shouldn't have existed within the space. Not that I wasn't glad for that, mind you, but it was starting to make me anxious. Things were going too smoothly. Feeling restless, I checked my wristwatch. Only 2 minutes had passed since I sat down for a quick rest, and already I was antsy to get up and go again. It was impossible to truly get any rest with the thought of how much real-world time I was wasting, with every minute constantly weighing on my mind. Every second spent sitting still did far more to mentally wear me down than the exhaustion of running ever could. I stood, took a huge deep breath, and then started booking it up the steep incline. 5 hours, 20 minutes outside, 1 year, 168 days. My light jog had officially slowed to a trudging walk. With each plodding step, the soles of my shoes scraped loudly against the rocky tunnel floor. I had no idea how far I'd come anymore. All I knew was that every joint and muscle in my leg hurts like hell. For the first 3 hours or so that I was in the tunnel, I cried out Karen's name every couple of minutes, but now I couldn't muster the energy. It was hard enough trying to propel myself forward. By now, an entire year and a half had passed in the outside world, yet I hadn't seen hide nor hair of my little sister. All I'd seen were an infinite number of the same exact torches in the same exact tori. Though there had been some changes, like the sudden steep inclines or curves in the tunnel's course for a while there, I was worried that the first uphill climb might go on forever. But it soon reversed into an easy downhill jaunt, and there was also a time when I hit several sharp 90-degree turns in quick succession. My senses of direction was entirely out of whack at this point, and I had no idea if I was supposed to be farther underground or above ground, or if I was even going in the same direction horizontally. Thankfully, there hadn't yet been any forks or intersections, so I at least knew I was still making some forward progress. God damn it. My throat was parched and I'd already gone through nearly half my water supply, considering that I still had to make my way back the entire distance I'd come. I really didn't want to drink any more than that. Why in the world had I decided to pick calorie mate, perhaps the single biggest thirst inducer, as my only source of nutrition on this journey? Man, I killed for an ice cold lifeguard right about now, I thought. Nevertheless, I pressed on, trying my best to suppress my unquenched thirst. When all of a sudden I heard a loud thunk from ahead. Like the sound of a large boulder being flipped on its side, a vague sense of deja vu made me stop right where I was. I knew it had to be some sort of omen. One of the tunnel's strange manifestations was about to appear right before my eyes. A chill ran through my entire body and a low pitch rang in my ears. No, it wasn't just in my head, it was an actual sound. The sound of 1,000 footsteps and human voices, each one so chipper and full of life. Yet no matter how hard I tried, they were too numerous and muddled for me to make out a single word. Even so, there were people there. People other than me. Just ahead. A lot of them. I wet my throat with a fresh coat of saliva and called out into the darkness. Aden? You there? I took another step forward, but then something reached out and grabbed my right arm. And my heart nearly burst out of my chest, terrified. I turned to look over my shoulder and my jaw dropped. It was my father. There you are, Kaoru, he said. I've been looking all over for you. Oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god. I'm really in it for now. How the hell did he find me here? My head was a jumbled mess of panic and fear. It was such a shock to my system that my brain was still trying to catch up. What's the matter? You've just seen a ghost, not feeling well? I can't read that too fast. What's the matter? You look like you've just seen a ghost, not feeling well. This made me finally snap back to my senses. There was no tension in my father's voice whatsoever. On further inspection, I saw he was wearing a summery yukata and his face looked like a fair bit younger as well. Something wasn't right here. No, nothing was right. Just how the hell had he gotten here? If he followed me all the way, then surely I would have heard his footsteps or his voice calling out to me. As I pondered this little conundrum, I noticed a gaping hole behind my father, through which a bustling crowd of people could be seen. Apparently, this was the source of the voices I've been hearing. Try my best to collect my thoughts and analyze the situation rationally. On either side of the crowd, I could also make out dozens of red paper lanterns and food stands. It was like an entire festival was happening through a little portal in the side of the Urashima tunnel. And a younger version of my father had just so happened to wander in from the other side. No, that's impossible. The far more likely explanation was that this was an illusion conjured by the tunnel itself. That was still an impossible phenomenon in a sense, but one that I at least had reason to believe was plausible due to some prior experience. Is the crowd getting to be too much for you, son? If you want, we can head home. The realization that this was not the same father I left behind came as a huge relief. That relief was quickly followed by a wave of anger. Why had the tunnel given me him and not Kaden? Even if it was his younger, kinder self, I didn't want anything to do with this guy anymore. Didn't even want to see his ugly mug ever again. Yet, for some inexplicable reason, I felt a strange sense of ease and belonging. It pissed me off beyond belief, but somewhere deep down, a part of me yearned desperately to cling to this man who was supposed to be my father figure. Even though he had failed miserably in that respect, it was an emotion I thought I'd discard years and years ago. I could deal with him ignoring me, or abusing me physically or verbally, but this I couldn't handle. It threw me for an entire loop. I stood, frozen in place. Kaoru, are you alright, sweet? Then came another voice I recognized all too well. As my biological mother poked her head out from behind my father, it was the mother I remember from back when Kaden was still alive. When every day was a gift and we were the picture of a happy family, that version of her stood right before my eyes, smiling down at me with a welcoming warmth only a mother could provide. Yet, he doesn't seem quite right, my father said. Or, yeah, he doesn't seem quite right, my father said. Maybe a soda or something would cheer him up. Good idea. You just walked by a drink stand a minute ago. You're like lifeguard, don't you, sweetie? I'll have a beer while you're at it. Oh, no, you won't. You've still got to drive us home, mister. Well, it was worth a shot. Ha 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 ha. No, stop. I can't take this crap anymore. I screamed at the top of my lungs, then tore my arm free. While the two of them were too startled to react. Then I took off running as fast as I possibly could. They called after me, but I refused to turn or look back. I just ran and ran until eventually tears streamed down my cheeks. Damn it, stop trying to screw with my head. How could I not feel conflicted after being shown such an idyllic vignette from my childhood? It was like the Urashima tunnel was deliberately trying to pour salt into old wounds. I'm sorry, I hit the mic. I felt the urge to puke and kept on running, glaring angrily down the tunnel's throat as I wiped the tears from my eyes. Besides, as irritating as it was, that vision had only gone to support my hypothesis as to the tunnel's true nature, the one I'd come up with in Anzu's bedroom. If my theory was correct, then it would only be a matter of time before I was reunited with Kaden again. So I kept running. That thought as my sole motivation. As long as I could see my sister again, it would all be worth it. I'd never ask for anything ever again. Hey, Delight. I won't be reading chat that much today. I mean, I'll be reading it, but I won't respond. I won't talk to chat that much, because I usually do in the reading streams, but because I don't want to end on a cliffhanger, I'm reading 90 pages tonight, so it's just going to be a very quiet stream in terms of chatting. And if you're into anime, this book is going to be a movie, I believe this fall. So, if you want to avoid spoilers, well, might be best to tune out because we're at the end of the book. Yep. Anyways, yeah, thanks for dropping by, Delay. Stay, do everyone. Take care. I'll just be focused on reading. Alright. And thanks for a compliment. Total time elapsed 9 hours 56 minutes. Outside 2 years 263 days. Damn it. God damn it. Just how far did this goddamn tunnel go? I'd been running for nearly 10 hours now, and still all I could see were torches and Tori. Where the hell was Kat, and how much time had passed in the outside world? Like, going on 3 years? I'd have graduated high school if I were living out there at normal speed. Even if I were to give up and turn back this instant, it would still be at least 5 years spent in the tunnel by the time I made it out. Everyone I knew would either be finishing college or well on their way to building a fruitful career. They'd be studying hard for their senior thesis or working full-time, finding new hobbies and getting hitched, and then there was me, running in circles through the dark, going from 17 to 22 without accomplishing a damn thing. I had virtually no water left at this point, maybe enough for 1 or 2 more big sips. My legs were fast approaching their limit as well. Every step forward sent a sharp, searing pain through my knees. If I went much farther, I knew I wouldn't be physically capable of making the return journey. But what was I to do? Just turn back? Or should I keep clinging to that last remaining sliver of hope and press onwards? Couldn't help but laugh. That was a stupid question. If I turned back now, all of this would have been just one gigantic waste of time. I would have been given away over 5 years of my life for nothing. When Cotton could be just around the next corner, or even closer. To give up now would be the stupidest choice imaginable. Only a complete moron would do that. I had to press on and have faith that she was waiting for me just ahead. Cotton, I cried out for the umpteenth time, my voice raw and hoarse as it squeezed past my dry throat. Yet I would keep calling her name until I found her. No matter what happened, I refused to rest my legs until she and I were reunited. Was I sure I was doing the right thing? Wasn't there anything better I could be doing with my life? Was this all going to end up being an even bigger waste of time when I finally did throw in the towel? I tried my best not to give questions like these much thought. Obviously, I was scared out of my mind by the possibilities, but I refused to think about them, or when I did, I fought hard not to give in to those fears. Nobody's future was certain after all. We were all just running, groping through the dark as time and death slowly crept up on us. I wasn't the only one afraid of that uncertainty. The same could be said for Anzu or Koharu or anyone. All we could do was keep moving forward, holding fast to the belief that one day we'd get to where we were going, before the world snatched it away from us. So I downed the rest of my water in one gulp and kept walking, dragging my feet along the floor. Total time elapsed 14 hours 20 minutes. Outside 3 years 338 days. I made my way up yet another steep incline. I couldn't see in front of me anymore, and I was practically crawling with how sluggishly I was dragging my legs. I discarded all the things I brought with me. I'd even thrown away my shoes. Turning back now was no longer an option I was willing to consider. I couldn't remember how long I'd been climbing this hill, just that it had been going on for what felt like ages. No doubt it was the longest uphill trek I'd ever made in my entire life. Ugh, God, this was excruciating. My entire body ached with exhaustion, and my legs had been reduced to 2 mushy hunks of tenderized flesh, only capable of sending out distress signals to my pain receptors with every step. My eyelids were starting to feel heavy too. I needed sleep. I wanted to stop and take a rest. I was sure that lying down would help me recover a bit and give me a much needed break from this endless incline. I couldn't let myself do that. I knew that if I laid down there was a good chance I'd never get back up. I had to press on and make it to the top of this damn hill. Then again, what if I gave up? I mean, this seemed downright impossible. and I was approaching my limit. No, that was a lie. I had long since passed it. I was using every trick in the book to keep my mind off the pain, and somehow it had worked thus far. However, even if I were to find Cotton now, there wouldn't really be any point to it. I lacked the least sliver of willpower or stamina to make the journey home. God, I'm so tired. Maybe I ought to give up. But first, let's go a little farther, just in case. I'll keep walking just a little longer, and if I don't find anything, I'll give up. Just a little farther, just a little farther, just a little farther. I stopped dead in my tracks, not because my legs have finally gone on strike, but because something stood directly in my way. Lifting my weary head to take a look, I saw an old wooden door. My heart let out an audible ka-thump. A surge of renewed hope shot through my chest. This was the first time I'd run into a roadblock or dead end of any sort in the tunnel. Cotton could very well be just behind this door, although if she wasn't, and all that awaited me on the other side was yet another uphill climb, no. I don't want to consider that the possibility. I decided right then and there to make this door the end point of my journey. If my little sister wasn't behind it, then I'd stop and take a rest. Gripping the handle, I leaned all my weight on the door in an attempt to push it open, since my muscles lacked the strength to do so on their own. Hey Mofu, do you want me to explain what happened in the past 20 pages? Oh, we're doing well, Mofu. We're 25 pages in, I think. Yes, please. So do you remember Anzu? Hanashiro Anzu, the manga author? How like she was having second thoughts of going to the tunnel? Or she expressed hesitation for the tunnel? Okay, I'm only giving Mofu this treatment. I know I'm not gonna talk to chat. I'm only giving Mofu this treatment because I know Mofu's has been here for the entire story and is interested in it. But Mofu was late this time, so I'll explain it. Just for Mofu. Okay, so so because of that, Kaoru was like, the main character was like, okay, then we'll just, you know, delay the adventure into the tunnel, and until Anzu settles whether she wants to like be a manga author or not. But as the days went on, she ended up calling. I think she ended up calling Kaoru again. Like, you know, I need to think about it a little bit more. And then the main character was like, yeah, whatever, take as much time as you want. But then after that, or then the day after or something, she decided to call him again, to like, you know, just to talk, because she was still like conflicted. But then Anzu wasn't able to get a hold of the main character, Kaoru, on the cell phone. So she went to his house. The father said that he's been missing for like 2 days, and then she goes to the tunnel. She went to the tunnel, and Anzu picked up like a message in a bottle, which Kaoru left behind, saying that Kaoru, the main character, went into the tunnel already without her, and he was saying that you should not go in the tunnel with me. Just go out there, be the best manga author you can be, and forget about me, basically. And that, giving all these encouraging words about like how she has worth in her life, and that her manga is meant to be read by many other people in the world. And then it just cuts off there. Whether her reaction to the letter gets cut off there. And then now just transition back to Kaoru, the main character, trying to find his little sister in the tunnel, because that's his wish for the tunnel. And he's just been running around to know, without like seeing anything. He's been in that tunnel for 14 hours and 20 minutes, which is 3 years in the outside world, or nearly 4 years. He did end up seeing his father and mother, but he got mad at them. But not his real mother and father, just like an illusion made by the tunnel. And he got mad at it because he didn't want to see them. He wants to see his little sister, not the mother and father from back then when they were still together before their family broke apart after the little sister's death. And now it's just talking about how he's walking up this hill and that there might be something, you know, over the hill and he sees an old wooden door and then just runs and just hopefully there's something behind it. And yeah, it's just talking about the main character Kaoru being in the tunnel, exploring everything. And that he's dying because you know, running and jogging for 14 hours straight kind of kills you. And because he's not built for it. But yeah, that's where we're at right now. Yeah, I'm gonna continue reading. Honestly, I'm at 1 hour and we're almost like 30 pages in, so we're basically it hasn't been 1 hour yet and we're nearly 30 pages in. I think I can definitely read 90 pages tonight. Alright. Also, both of you are late, so you're banned. Alright. I'm gonna start reading now. Again, I'm not gonna read I'm gonna read chat, but I'm not gonna respond or talk to chat like ever. Unless it's like something really important. I might make small comments maybe, but nothing super I'm not gonna interact with chat that much because I'm just gonna focus on reading freaking 90 pages. 90 freaking pages. Well, if I want to tell you something, you're banned. Alright, let's read. Alright. Ugh. As soon as the door swung open, my legs gave out from under me, and I collapsed forward, my forehead slamming against the ground. Yet it didn't hurt, because my fall was cushioned by a soft, shimmering blanket of sand. What? The sand was warm against my face, and I felt rays of sunlight streaming down my cheeks. Had I finally made it outside? Lifting my head, I got a big whiff of salt and brine as a gust of wind blew by, sending my bangs fluttering in the breeze. Impossible though. It seemed I found myself lying face down on a white sandy beach with an endless ocean spread out before my eyes. Its water, the deepest of blues, yet crystal clear all the way to the horizon. I sat up on my knees and looked behind me. An old, dilapidated cabin gazed listlessly over the shore, its front doors made from the same weathered wood as the one I'd stumbled out of. Yet there was no tunnel behind the cabin, only a grassy meadow covered in lush new greenery. I paid it little mind. Whatever part of my brain was responsible for making sense of things had long since gone into a state of numb paralysis. Right now, the only thing that mattered to me was whether my sister was here. Squeezing every last drop of remaining energy from the tattered old dish rag my body had become, I called her name at the top of my lungs. Karen. Over here, I heard I've never seen this word before. Lackadaisical? I don't know, lackadaisical voice call back. I turned my head in the direction the reply that had come from. A girl was standing right there on the beach. Her ponytail dangled out from the back of her baseball cap. Her loose-fitting tank top hung halfway down over her denim shorts. Her bright red sandals were half buried in the flowing golden sand. It was her. It was Karen. You finally made it, Kaoru, she said with a smile that could outshine 1,000 stars. All at once, my body went limp and my vision grew dark as my mind found relates its tenuous grip on consciousness. I see, well, thanks. I was in the midst of a peaceful sleep. As I lay on my back, a gentle breeze blew against my body, its angle shifting to and fro in a slow, methodical pattern on the tiny motor on the oscillating fan hummed softly. As a tiny motor on the oscillating fan hummed softly, a futon was rolled up beneath me. When I tried to turn my head slightly, I heard the chaff of the buckwheat seeds inside my pillow shift and scrape against one another. The sweet, earthy scent of the tatami mats under my body soothed my nostrils. It felt like I was sinking slowly into a thick, viscous pool of liquid comfort. I felt all my exhaustion, all my stress being purged from my body by those purifying waters. I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to open my eyes. I wanted to lie there and sleep forever. And honestly, why shouldn't I be allowed to do that? I've been busting my ass for so long that surely no one would think less of me for that. Man, the breeze from that fan feels nice. Wait, what was I busting my ass for again? Oh, right. The moment I remembered my purpose, I shot up in bed. Through the open screen door, I saw the ocean past the veranda. I surveyed my surroundings. I was lying in the middle of a room lined with sun-bleached tatami mats, with a hanging wall scroll in the alcove featuring a tranquil mountain scene. It was a room I'd been in before, many times in fact. Hang on a minute. I'm back at my house? What could that be? I'd run myself half to death trying to make it through the Urashima tunnel, and now I was sleeping soundly in my own home? I wasn't wearing the clothes I'd worn into the tunnel either, just a ratty old t-shirt and some shorts. Could it be that it was all a dream? Had there never been an Urashima tunnel to begin with? No, that couldn't be it. I would never fall asleep like this in the sitting room. I would never fall asleep like this in the sitting room? Sitting room. Besides, there are two huge differences between this room and the one at my house. The first being that you couldn't even see a smidge of the ocean from my home, just the overgrown backyard and the mountain behind it. The second being that something major was missing from this one. Karen's memorial altar. It was nowhere to be. Oh hey, you're awake, said a voice. A voice that belonged to my little sister, Karen. She came rushing over to me, her bare feet stamping against the tatami flooring. Boy, you just up and passed all of a sudden. I had to drag you all the way here myself. You've gotten pretty darn heavy, you know that? She was right here in front of me, talking, laughing. Neither her face nor her voice had aged a day since the last time I saw her, when she was 10 years old. You're all covered in sweat, so I went ahead and changed you into a fresh set of clothes too. You owe me a big time, Buster. Karen placed her hands on her hips and puffed out her cheeks in her trademark pouting pose. Hey, are you even listening to me? She brought her face in close to mine and I finally snapped back to my senses. Karen? Is that really you? You're not just a figment of my imagination or something, are you? I sputtered, fumbling over every other word. Wow, rude. See for yourself, why don't you? Here. Karen plopped to her knees and grabbed my hand, then placed my palm against her cheek. Her face was soft and warm, but most of all undeniably real. See? Karen smiled and cocked her head, looking for agreement on my part, so I nodded feebly. She definitely wasn't an illusion, but this was all happening so fast that it still wasn't quite registering in my brain. Seeing Karen in the flesh, then waking up in this weird alternate universe version of my house, having to process all these impossible stimuli had sent my brain into a nuclear meltdown. And it refused to acknowledge any one of them as real, so I simply sat there, looking at Karen in a daze, until eventually my stomach let out a mighty growl. Oh? Are you hungry, Kaoru? Nah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, I'm not like... Just as I was about to say starving or anything, I felt an intense pang in my empty stomach and a fierce thirst in my throat. I'd only forgotten, then briefly because the shock and confusion at all that was happening had fried my other senses. To be sure, I was absolutely famished, and more than that, I needed water. Desperately, toward the end there, I'd run for several hours without a single drop. Sorry, Karen, but could you bring me something to drink? Sure thing, we've got a lot to choose from though. What would you like? Anything's fine, just bring a lot of it. Anything, you say? Well, okay. She responded peppily and then got up and headed into the kitchen with a skip in her step. Meanwhile, I was coming down with a bit of a headache, so I vigorously rubbed my temples. This was more of an information overload than my poor brain could handle. I didn't know where to begin trying to make sense of it. As I gazed blankly out over the ocean, I heard a high-pitched mechanical whir coming from inside the kitchen. Karen must have been using the blender. What in the world was she mixing up for me? Hey, robot boy. Okay, all done. Karen came into the room with a large cup and a removable pitcher from our old electric blender. There was a thick, whitish liquid inside. Wait, is that... Did you make banana juice? You betcha. She held up the pitcher triumphantly, grinning from ear to ear as the liquid jostled around in the container and nearly spilled over the rim. Now this took me back. She and I had made banana juice together all the time. However, ever since she died, I hadn't made it once, using the convenient justification that the blender was too much trouble to clean. Here you go, Kaoru. The sweet smell of banana passed through my nostrils as I took the cup from Cotton and proceeded to drink it down. At our house, we always add a whole lot of milk per banana, so it came out extra smooth. I downed the entire thing, never once lowering the cup from my lips until it was drained of every last drop. All I could do was let out a sigh of contentment. I wasn't sure a drink had ever left me so satisfied. My throat tingled with sugary goodness as I went to pour myself another glass. I heard the ding of the microwave cooling off in the kitchen. Oh, yay, the food's ready. We're having food? Yep, or well, you are. At least, I made it, though. Go in the living room and I'll have it right out. Cotton dashed off into the kitchen yet again. Wow, little Cotton's making food all by herself, eh? I found this extremely bizarre, yet I rose from my futon all the same, bringing the juice cup and pitcher with me into the living room. There on the low dining table, I found a big jumbo bowl of fancy instant soba noodles as well as 3 grilled roast rice balls, microwave from frozen. Sitting in a row, Cotton was seated on one of the floor cushions, looking up at me with pride. I couldn't help but crack a smile. Yeah, that's about what I would have expected. Well, enjoy. Thanks. Will do. I sat next to Cotton and picked up my chopsticks, clapped my hands together, then dug straight into the bowl of noodles. I dipped the crunchy, dehydrated tempura puck into the broth a little bit, letting it soak up the savory shrimp flavor, and took a nibble. Then I tried the noodles. Normally, the flavor would have been a little much for me, but in my current state of exhaustion, it was like the nectar of the gods. My taste buds savored each and every drop of the salty broth. Man, I don't remember these things tasting so good. I kept slurping up soba noodles like nobody's business, only stopping to take a bite of one of the fried rice balls or to cool my mouth off with a sip of banana juice. It wasn't the best drink pairing for a meal like this, admittedly, but I could hardly complain when I was prepared to devour anything and everything in sight without even remembering to breathe. I felt all 5 of my senses slowly growing clearer and clearer with every bite of chewed up food matter I gulped down my throat. This was beyond the realm of deliciousness. I felt like a cadaver returned to life. After guzzling the last drop of remaining broth, I set the bowl on the table. Satisfied, I opened my eyes again, and finally, I could truly appreciate the beautiful sight laid out before me. It was a scene that I'd been trying to recapture for what felt like ages. Cotton and I merely existing in the same space, enjoying our carefree lives together. If we're here at the end, I'll talk about my finger, but it's nothing. The skin just peeled off while I was riding my bike. I can talk about it more later, after I finish the story. So, how was it? She asked with a smile. This was the first time I was cognizant enough to try to truly recognize and appreciate her as Cotton, my little sister. The moment I did, the flood of emotions I'd bottled up for years came rushing to the surface, crashing over me in waves. Every little detail about her was so vivid, so exactly the way I remembered it. Everything from her smile, to the way she breathed, to her tiny mannerisms, all the way down to how each individual strand of hair in her bangs swayed back and forth with every slight movement of her head. I was smacking woeful. Suddenly my vision blurred, and I heard a single water droplet plip into the empty noodle container. The dam burst, and that first drop was followed by an endless stream of tears as I broke down into a sniveling, sobbing mess. The tears were hot against my cheeks, and it was all I could do to keep myself from bawling loudly and inconsolably. Aylin. Then, Cotton reached out and ran her fingers through my hair, tracing her soft little hands up and down the length of my scalp. You've been trying so hard for so long, big brother. There was a maternal gentleness to her tone, almost as though the words radiated actual heat that melted something cold and hard inside of me. I nodded over and over. After thanking her for the meal and cleaning up after myself, I'd finally managed to calm down quite a bit. That was the most satisfying meal I had in my entire life thus far. My chest was fluttering with euphoric contentment. Hey, Cotton? Yeah? I had to ask her something. Now that I was once more in a sound state of mind. Something I absolutely had to verify, even if I wouldn't like to answer. Are you actually the real Cotton? Cotton groaned, putting her elbows on the table and resting her head in her hands. This again? You really can't tell, huh? I'm doing fine, Lynn. I won't be talking to chat that much because I need to read 60 more pages? 50 more pages? So I'll be focused on reading. Just for this stream. Other reading streams, I usually talk to chat, but not today. So I'll be focused. And Robot Boy, the name of the light novel is in the stream title. The Tunnel to Summer, the Exit of Goodbyes. This again? You really can't tell, huh? I thought I told you she began, then stopped short as her lips curled into a mischievous grin. Well, which do you think I am, Kaoru? The real Kanon or an imposter? Hey, don't answer my question with another question. But it's more fun that way. Kanon flashed her canines, to be sure. It was hard to feel that annoyed when I knew it was all in good fun for her. Well, Kaoru, come on, let's hear it. Which do you think I am? I'll mention my finger at the end. It's nothing important. I fell down the stairs. How about that? But it's more fun that way. Kind of. Wait. It seemed I had no choice but to play along with her little game. I think I inhaled a shallow breath. Karen looked at me with innocent eyes, eagerly awaiting my answer. I think you're the real one. Is that your final answer? Yeah? Well, there you go then. Don't let me tell you any different. I'd seen the anticlimactic punchline coming, yet it still earned my groan. Surprisingly, this joke answer actually resonated with me, and I was pretty satisfied with it. In the end, there was really no way to know if this Kanon was an elaborate fake conjured by the tunnel to deceive me. Not any clear definition of what real meant in a supernatural situation like this. In that case, all I could really do was believe that. What I wanted to believe. That's what I assumed Kanon was trying to tell me. Bad RNG. That's my reason. You're right. All that matters is that you're real to me. I agreed, hoping that by saying it aloud, it might make it feel more like the truth. Anyway, enough about that. We've got watermelon in the fridge, Kaoru. We should have some. Sounds like a plan. I decided that worrying about it any further wasn't going to get me anywhere, so I stood up and we headed to the kitchen. Opening the door to the fridge, I saw that inside, there was indeed a plate of sliced watermelon covered in plastic wrap. Below that were a variety of other treats as well as a vast assortment of drinks, just like Cotton had said, including a few bottles of Cheerio and Lifeguard. I didn't know where she'd gotten all this stuff, but something told me it would be pointless to ask. Mofu, I'm gonna freaking ban you. You little stinker. We sat on the veranda and sank our teeth into the juicy watermelon, its ice-cold flesh gushing sweet nectar directly into our mouths. It had to be the best watermelon I'd ever tasted. When Cotton started spitting the seeds into the yard, I followed suit. Soon, all-out war began as we duked out to see who could spit their seeds the farthest. It was so much fun. I actually started crying. Sheesh, Kaoru. Since when have you been such a crybaby? Aren't you supposed to be the older sibling here? No, Ichiro, but hey Ichiro, hope you're doing well. I won't be talking to chat that much. I'll be focused on reading, because there's a lot of pages I need to read tonight. Yeah, you got me there, I replied, sniffling. But you can't blame me. People actually cry more when they're older, you know? Because they get more sappy and sentimental about stuff. Alright, sometimes I keep looking to the stream because I'm trying to readjust the book in case I tilt it too much. Yeah. They do? Yeah, pretty sure I read that somewhere. Huh, I thought people were only supposed to get tougher when they grew up. Karen swung her legs back and forth as they dangled over the edge of the veranda. Well, some do, that's for sure. I knew one person who was very tough. Yeah? What were they like? Oh man, where do I even begin? Incidentally, it was Anzu who had immediately popped into my mind. She was the prettiest girl you ever saw, but could hold her own in a fistfight right up there with the best of them. This one time, she stood up to a super intimidating guy who was way bigger and older than her. But even when he started slapping her across the face and kicking her in the stomach, she didn't bend or break. She kept her cool and waited for an opening to strike back. That's the sort of girl she was. At first, I was honestly kind of afraid of her, but once we started spending time together, I realized she's actually pretty damn cute once you get to know her. What the? I could read faster, but then y'all won't be able to. Then people won't be able to understand it. I can read it fast as if I don't read it out loud. Do you have a crush on her, Kaoru? Kanan asked, looking up at me with pure, wide-eyed curiosity. I set my half-eaten slice of watermelon on the plate and gazed out over the ocean. Yeah, I think I do actually. Well, please. Kanan let out a high-pitched squeal of scandalized glee, then scooted closer. Well, if you like her so much, how come you're not together? Well, she's got her own stuff she needs to focus on right now. You still want to be with her though, right? Isn't it lonely being here without her? I mean, yeah, it definitely is, but see, Kanan stared at me with rapt attention, awaiting my reply. I couldn't bring myself to shrug her off or lie about this. The truth is, I don't feel like I should be permitted to really, genuinely love somebody like that. Only after words had left my lips did I realize that this was probably the first time I'd ever uttered the word love about a specific person in a romantic context and meant it. Now that I had, I couldn't help but smile sheepishly to dampen how embarrassing it was to admit. I still meant what I said though. At the end of the day, it was my negligence that had killed Karan. Moreover, I was the one who had caused the original rift between my mother and father, which had led her to leave us and him to hit rock bottom. I would have to be a pretty disgusting, selfish human being to ignore all the pain and suffering I'd caused to go prancing off into the sunset for my own happily ever after. Granted, I know that sounds dumb, I continued. I mean, it's not like anyone's forcing me to bear that cross. It's self-inflicted suffering at this point. Guess it's the one thing I can't seem to get past for whatever reason. But I don't know. Maybe this is all a little too grown up for you to understand. Nuh-uh, Karen pouted, scrunching her face. I totally understand. Being permitted, it's like when you have to get your parents to sign a piece of paper to go on a future, right? Haha, well, that too, yeah. Do you really need a permit to love someone though? Oh, no, I wouldn't say that. I think everyone's born with that right. I also think it's possible to lose it under certain circumstances. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. Well, in that case, I'll have to give you a new one. Kanan shot up and dashed into the hall. I heard her speedy footsteps thumping up the stairs. Less than a minute later, she barreled onto the veranda with a set of markers and some white printer paper in her hands. What's that for? I asked. Watch this. Actually, no. You can't look yet. Turn the other way. Sheesh, make up your mind, you crazy kid. I did as I was told nonetheless. All I could hear was the sound of her markers squeaking loudly against the paper, only pausing occasionally when she stopped and pondered aloud how to write a certain character or realized she'd made a mistake. By the time I finished what remained of my half-eaten slice of watermelon, she informed me that I was finally allowed to look. When I turned, I saw Karin in a formal seating position, facing me with her hands on her knees and her butt on her heels. Okay, allow me to present your replacement permit, she began, then held the sheet of paper in front of her face as she proceeded to read off what she'd written. Kaoru Tono, In honor of how hard you worked coming all the way in here to find me, I hereby grant you the right to love again. If you want to, that is. Anyways, congrats. She held the sheet of paper towards me with both hands. I looked down to see the words love permit written in big bubble letters at the top, surrounded by all sorts of colorful little doodles. A flower, a little doggy, and so on. It was very cute. Yet I found myself unable to reach out and accept it from her. What's the matter, Kaoru? Go on, take it. A warm sensation bubbled up from the pit of my stomach. Ever since the day we lost Kaden, I've been languishing, distressed, constantly tormented by the fact that I was still here. But she wasn't. I desperately wanted to be punished for having been unable to save her, yet I couldn't think of a single way in which I could ever properly atone. So I simply refused to allow myself even the slightest bit of happiness, hoping that might alleviate some small fraction of my guilt. I was prepared to live out the rest of my days this way, like a monk who'd sworn off worldly desires, yet now, thanks to Karen, Of course, it was also clear to me now. There was no longer a shred of doubt in my mind that Urashima Tunnel didn't have the power to grant wishes. All it could do was help you reclaim the things you lost. That was the tunnel's true power. Cotton Sandal, our old pet parakeet, the day when my mother and father and I all lived happily together, even Cotton herself, and now my ability to love another human being. They were all things that I lost somewhere along the way and which the tunnel had given me a chance to reclaim. Kaoru, if you don't want this, I'm gonna throw it out. But wait, no, I do want it. I really do. I frantically reached out and took the love permit with both hands. As I touched it, an exhilarating electric feeling ran through my fingertips, then coursed up my arms and through my entire body. It was just a thin sheet of printer paper, yet it held deep emotional value that went beyond appraisal. I sat there frozen in place for a while, soaking in the sensation of holding it in my hands. It felt like I was finally free, after all these years spent captive to my own self-loathing. Thank you, Kanan. I promise. I'll treasure it always. Hey, Synchro. Please do. And, sorry, I know I only just got here, but I smiled sheepishly, hoping once again that I might take the edge off the extremely embarrassing line I was about to say. I feel like I'm ready to try to love someone again. When I went up to my bedroom, I found that my backpack had already been set out for me, almost as if Kanan had foreseen this turn of events. I slung it over my shoulder and headed to the kitchen, opening the fridge door. I grabbed enough food for Chu and crammed it into the main pouch. I now knew approximately how long the tunnel was and thus how much food and water we would need. As long as neither of us suffered any injuries on the way out, we would be able to make it back without too much trouble. We were all set to go whenever. I slipped the love permit into a sheet protector to keep it from getting creased and slid that into my backpack as well before heading to the sitting room. Hey, Cotton, I called, and she turned from her seat on the veranda, still chewing a mouthful of watermelon. Let's leave this place, together. I had to bring Cotton with me to Kozaki. That was my original objective, even if the comfort of this illusory home had caused me to momentarily forget. However, until both of us were out safely on the other end of the tunnel, I couldn't call my mission complete. Where are we going? She asked. Down to the beach? Somewhere even better, where there are aquariums and zoos and all sorts of different things. I'll take you anywhere in the world, as long as it isn't here. But we do have aquariums and zoos here, and amusement parks, and indoor water parks, anything you could ever want. I knew Kanan had to be telling the truth. If my own house had been replicated, then the sky was the limit. Nevertheless, that wouldn't be enough for me. No, Kanan, I mean, sure, maybe you're right. Maybe this paradise really does have everything I could ever want. But it isn't where we belong. We have to go back to Kozaki. No way. Kanan took another big old bite of watermelon, chewed, swallowed. I've gotten used to being here. I don't think I've got what it takes to live out there anymore. Of course you do. I dropped to my knees and made intense eye contact with her as I slammed my fist against my chest. I'll make sure there's a place for you out there again. I promise I'll find a way to make it work, and I won't let anyone get in our way. I knew it wouldn't be easy for Kanan to return to society that had marked her as long deceased. However, I meant what I said, and I was really confident that I could pull it off somehow. For Kanan, I could do anything. So please, won't you come with me? I pleaded. Kanan finished her slice of watermelon and set it on the plate, then let out an exaggerated sigh, like a troublemaking kid who'd been caught red-handed. Okay, fine. You win, I guess. Sweet, then let's go get going, I exclaimed, grabbing Kanan by the hand and heading for the front door. Then, I remembered something. Oh, crap, the time. Oh, God. I've been so caught up in catching up with Kanan that I'd wholly forgotten. I was about to rush into the living room to check the time, then quickly realized that none of the clocks here would probably reflect how much time had actually passed since I entered the tunnel. I had to check the wristwatch I'd strapped on at the start of this journey. I wasn't wearing it anymore, so where was it? Maybe Kanan had taken it off when she changed my clothes. Thanks for a look, Robot Boy. Hey, Kanan, you wouldn't happen to know where my watch is, would you? Oh, you mean this? Kanan reached into her pockets and pulled it out. In a rush of anxiety and relief, I snatched the watch from her grasp and checked the time. It read 5:30, and I entered the tunnel at midnight. The last time I remembered checking my watch, the little hand had been pointing to the 2, but I knew it had already been a full rotation by that point, so that implied that it had been not 5.5 hours, but 17.5. Yet even that seemed a little odd. Hey, Kanan? How long was I asleep after I got here? Oh, you were zoinked out for a while, like half a day probably. I froze. If I slept for 12 hours, then that implied the little hand had made 2 full rotations and was working on its 3rd, which meant I'd been in town for going on 30 hours now. A cold sweat rolled down my forehead. Wait, we've got to go right now. I've been here for way too long. I grabbed Kanan by the hand and hurried out the front door. One step off the porch and my foot sank into the sand. The house stood on the boundary between a grassy meadow and the beach. There were no roads or utility poles to be seen anywhere. The utter impossibility of maintaining a permanent residence in a place like this had only drove home the fact that this world was an illusion. I quickly spotted the tiny shack from which I had originally emerged. It wasn't far at all from the house. We made our way across the beach until we stood before its old wooden door. It's not that they don't work, robots, because I don't have them. Okay, Kanan, you ready? Yeah. She looked pensive, gripping the lower hem of her tank top as she stared anxiously at the ground. It'll be okay. No need to be afraid. It's a long way back, but I promise we'll make it. Welcome back, Eggy. Fushin. This did little to visibly reassure her. Regardless, we didn't have time to just stand around. The clock was ticking. Second by second, hour by hour, determined not to waste any more time, I reached out and slowly creaked open the door. Beyond it was a steep downhill slope I nearly killed myself climbing on the way to this place. Thankfully, the return trip would be easier on our stamina, though we'd still need to be careful not to trip and fall. Alright, let's do this. I took my first step through the door. As soon as I did, Kanan wrapped her arms around my waist from behind. I turned my head to look over my shoulder, but I couldn't see her face on account of it being buried into my backpack. All I knew was that I was staying on one side of the door and she was still staying ankle deep in the sand on the other. Kanan, what's the matter? There is someone out there who means the world to you, isn't there? Yeah, and I can't keep her waiting any longer. That's why we need to leave. I'm so glad. You're finally ready to move forward again. Kanan? Her little hand squeezed tight on the fabric of my shirt. Come on, Kaoru. You already know what I'm about to say, don't you? I felt an uncomfortable palpitation in my heart, and my breaths grew fewer and further between. I furrowed my brow. No, Kanan, I really don't. Why don't you spell it out for me? Well, think about it like this. Clownfish can only live in the sea. If you try to take one and put it in a river, it would only choke and die. They're weak that way. All they can really do is hide in their little anemone friends and watch the bigger, stronger fish from afar, like salmon, for example. They can live in the ocean or in freshwater. They can swim upstream, then back down again as many times as they want. Heck, they can even jump up waterfalls, and on top of all that, they're really yummy to eat. Well, yeah, you got that right. I really don't see how this has anything to do with our current situation, though. It has everything to do with it. You're like a salmon, Kaoru, but me, I'm a weak little clownfish stuck here in my... Don't say that, I shout out. You're Karen. You're a human being, not a clownfish or a salmon. You can go anywhere you want, so please don't say stuff like that. You're killing me here. I spent so much time in more ways than one trying to make it here. I couldn't possibly return by myself. It's okay, Kaoru. I'll always be with you. Whenever you need me, I'll be right there by your side, so please. Karen released her grip on my shirt. Don't worry about me. Go out there and live like you mean it, just like you told her. She pushed me from behind, only gently, but it was enough to make me lose my balance and stumble forward into the tunnel. Karen, I screamed, whirling around. Karen wasn't there, nor did any trace remain of the wooden door or the dazzling sunlight or the white sandy beach or even the lingering scent of salt water. It was just an infinite tunnel again, stretching out in both directions. It felt like all the air had been vacuumed out from my lungs. I started walking deeper into the tunnel, trying desperately to find a door to that dreamy shore once again. Then I heard a voice ring out in my head. Go out there and live like you mean it, just like you told her. Just like I told her. It went without saying who her was. Karen was telling me to stop letting myself be dragged down by the past and start looking toward the future, to find my place in the world right alongside Anzu. That was her final message to me as my little sister. I held my head in my hands, digging my fingers into my scalp. I closed my eyes as tightly as I could, yet still the tears found a way out. Some small part of me deep down had nursed an inkling that things would turn out like this. The Urashima Tunnel's true power was to help you retrieve what you lost after all. It had given me the chance to see Kanen as well as my right to love another person. It had given me something else too, without me realizing it. Realize my ability to stand tall and look reality in the face, to leave the pain of the past behind and start living in the now. In order to do that though, I would have to actually learn to move on from my sister's death, which was diametrically opposed to my original goal of bringing her out of the tunnel with me. I had to choose one or the other. I was confident that the tunnel had no will of its own, let alone ill will. My guess was that its manifestations of the things I lost were all automatic, so if a contradiction like this was occurring inside it, I had to assume it would only mean that there was already a part of me deep down that had unconsciously chosen to start facing reality again. A part of me that had accepted Karen's death. I should have known. I just hadn't been able to let go of that last sliver of hope I clung to for so long. That maybe one day a miracle would occur and those happy days we shared as a family would return. It was a naive story I dreamed, to be sure, but it was finally time for me to wake up. I gritted my teeth so hard that I felt like they might fissure and crack. I tensed my abs, trying my best to seal off the emotions billowing up inside of me and threatening to explode. I forced them down, deeper and deeper, then shut the lid tight, locked them away behind padlock after padlock, and threw away the keys. I wiped my eyes with my forearm from side to side and cried out at the top of my lungs. Karen, I'm headed out now. With that, I turned and started running as fast as I could toward the exit. Okay, I love you. Wow, there was an I there. I could almost hear her calling back. Yo, I cried a little bit. Like a single tear. Alright. Hi, Jen. Total time elapse 29 hours, 35 minutes. Outside, 8 years, 36 days. I sprinted desperately through the darkness, throwing myself downhill at nearly the fastest speed my legs could manage. The weight of my backpack, its straps chafing my shoulders as it bounced up and down, was definitely draining my stamina faster than it would have otherwise. But it also made me feel a lot more reassured than I had coming in. I knew that I had enough water and food to make it out, so I didn't have to worry about starving to death. It was purely a question of stamina and how fast I could make it outside. My heart pounded so loudly that I could hear it in my ears. With each step, a pain shot through my knees that made me worry that they might crack and crumble to bits. My throat was hoarse and raw from the intense rate at which I huffed air in and out of my lungs. I was in pain. I was exhausted. Nevertheless, I couldn't rest. Maybe at some point I would let myself stop to take a single breather along the way. Sure, that was still too early for that. Anzu was waiting for me outside, and I couldn't wait to see her again. Assuming she never tried to enter the tunnel, she was 25 years old by this point. Though I had told her that she shouldn't feel like she had to wait around for me, so I assumed she hadn't. Maybe she already had a boyfriend. Maybe she'd forgotten all about me. Hell, maybe she was married with kids. I didn't care. I wanted to know what sort of life she Dang. I wanted to know what sort of life she led over the month and years I'd spent running around in this musty old cave. Perhaps more than anything, I wanted to read whatever new story she had written. God, there were so many things I wanted to do. With a firm next step, I kicked off the ground and picked up the pace. I didn't feel any pain or exhaustion at this point. My hopes and dreams for the future served as a powerful aesthetic to numb me from both. I hoped this adrenaline rush would last me long enough to make it all the way outside. It was strange though. It was almost like the more I ran, the more stamina I gained and faster I went. The momentum didn't last for long. Because just then, as I rushed downhill, my legs got caught on one another, and I went tumbling forward. My vision spun into a dizzy blur as my body rolled down the steep incline, battered and bruised by the rocky floor with every rotation, and only stopped when my head crashed hard into a pillar of one of the torii. Even then, I got right back up and started running again. A trickle of liquid dripped into my eye. Thinking it was sweat, I reached up to wipe it away. My fingers came back red. I reached up to wipe it away, but my finger— oh wait, I already said that. I was bleeding from my skull, apparently. I paid it no mind. I kept on running. I had to hurry. The world wasn't going to wait for me any longer. I needed to go faster. Then faster still. I didn't care how black and blue, how bloodied and bruised I got. Nothing would stop me. Nothing would get in my way. For as long as the flow of time kept moving forward, I would keep running. Even if my legs gave up from under me, I would keep on going. I would claw myself out until my fingernails were shredded if I had to. Ugh, I screamed. I knew it was nothing but a waste of valuable energy, but I couldn't help it. I had to let out the raging whirlwind of emotions inside me. Yet still, my legs strode frantically onward. Even when my vision began to blur, I couldn't make out where I was going. I tripped and fell again and again. However, each and every time I got right back up. No matter what happened, I refused to give in. Kept on running. I've been running for so long. Where to? I didn't know. For what? I couldn't say. Maybe I was chasing something, or maybe something was chasing me. All I knew was that I'd been running for a long, long time. Still, to this day, I hadn't stopped. I kept moving forward, swinging my arms back and forth, even when my feet felt more bruised and blistered with every step, or at least I thought I was moving forward. Even so, no matter how much time passed, it seemed like I couldn't reach the finish line. I awoke with a terrible kink in my neck. I peeled my right cheek off the cold, hard tabletop and lifted my head. Apparently, I'd fallen asleep while working at my desk. I could feel my joints cracking as if I were a machine in desperate need of an oil change. I glanced at the digital table clock. It was 3 in the morning. I stood from my chair and stretched a bit, cranking my lower back with a satisfying pop. The thick scent of ink and wood pulp hung heavy in the air of my silent, sleepy bedroom. As I looked at the heaping stack of paper spread all over my writing desk, I decided it was about time to call it quits for the night. I'd clean up, take a shower, and then hop into bed for some actual rest. Before I did that, I wanted to finish one last scene. I twisted my shoulders from side to side, then sat down, put pen back to paper, and started inking my streaky pencil lines once more. We're back to Anzu right now. That fateful day when Kaoru ran off into the Urashima tunnel without me. I did try to chase after him at first. Even after reading the letter he'd left for me at the entrance, I figured that even if he got in a several-day head start, that would only amount to like a minute of time in the tunnel, so I could catch up with him easily. Then something stopped me. Whatever it is you think might find in here, you don't really need it. What you really need is to make a name for yourself as a manga artist ASAP. I got all the way to the boundary where the torii began, but the one line from his letter was like a ball and chain around my ankle, tethering me to the outside world and refusing to let me go inside. In a way, it was almost like he cast a spell on me, because now, it felt like I didn't pursue this manga opportunity, I'd be directly betraying Kaoru. So in the end, I couldn't do it. I had to turn back. You're making an entire story for my thumb? Leave my thumb alone. When I first read the letter, I managed to stay surprisingly calm about the whole thing. Though in retrospect, it was just that I couldn't bring myself to fully confront the harsh reality that had been left behind. Then again, thanks to that, I was able to keep a level head and make the right decision, so it was still a net positive. The first thing I did upon making it home that day was call my editor to tell him I'd changed my mind and that I wanted to work with him after all. Thankfully, despite my selfish flip-flopping, he welcomed me back with open arms, and he even said he was glad to hear it. From that day forward, I devoted myself wholeheartedly to drawing manga in a professional capacity. Even so, all the while, I was waiting for Kaoru to return to me. For the remainder of my high school career, I continued attending Kosaku High and sent whatever projects I'd written in my spare time to my editor through the mail. I faced a whole lot of rejection at first, and I lost more competitions than I could count, but eventually my hard work paid off and I actually won one. I got a short, self-contained story published in a magazine. Thanks, Eggy. Obviously, I was satisfied with this result, but at the time, it was hard to feel truly elated. I wasn't happy with my work, or anything, mind you. I was just upset with the way things had been going at school. All of our classmates seemed to have forgotten about Kaoru entirely, sure. He was the talk of the class for a short while when he stopped coming to school and word got out that he'd run away from home. But by the time our senior year began, everyone was too swamped with entrance exams and worrying about their career paths to mention him beyond the occasional, "Oh yeah, whatever happened to that guy?" I couldn't help but be reminded of the immense primal fear I'd felt as a child when I saw how quickly everyone moved on from my grandfather's death. My first experience with existential dread, however, the thought of Kaoru's existence fading into memory scared me even more than that, so I made a point to always keep him at the forefront of my mind, thinking about him more than anyone else in the world. When I graduated from high school, my editor suggested I move to Tokyo to try to get experience as a living assistant. For a more well-known manga artist, I immediately turned him down, insisting on staying right in Kozaki. I rented a small one-bedroom apartment in town, and thus began my life as a full-time author. Of course, both of my parents were vehemently opposed to my pursuit of a career in manga in lieu of further education. They'd always been huge sticklers about that sort of thing. Moreover, my determination was too strong to let them stop me. It was too late. I'd made the choice to devote my entire life to writing manga, knowing full well they'd likely disown me for it. I spent every hour of every day crafting worlds and characters and stories. This hard work soon bore fruit. However, only a year out of high school, I managed to secure a deal for my very first serialization. This was when things started to get really busy. My required daily workload increased by several orders of magnitude, and I only got about half as much sleep as I had in high school. If I was lucky yet for how grueling the lifestyle of a serialized manga artist could be, they certainly serve as a potent anesthetic to distract from the constant pangs of anxiety that stab at my chest every other waking hour of my life. Not a day went by that the dread of not knowing when Kaoru might return didn't rattle me to my core. What the man? I'm just thinking about the story. Man, it's really sad and wishful. Despite the extremely demanding deadlines of my writing schedule, I still managed to fit in a sliver of spare time here and there to stop by the Urashima Tunnel. Usually I just sat right at the entrance and started mumbling incoherently to myself, maybe talk about how work was coming along on my current manga. Every once in a while, I tried calling Kaoru's name. It was a bit like visiting someone's grave to pay respects. Though I never went so far as to leave flowers on the ground outside or anything. Although I did write a little letter for him each and every time I visited the tunnel, in which I'd relate whatever was going on in my life along with my updated contact information, and left it in a bottle inside the tunnel like he'd done for me. Though I never saw any indication that he or anyone else had ever opened it up and read a single one. You too, Mofo? Man. Yo, after I finish reading this, I'm gonna be talking a lot about the book. Well, maybe not that much, but I'll be rambling about random stuff about the book. Tell me, Tono-kun, just how much longer do I have to wait? Or was waiting my first mistake? I knew it was pointless to waste my breath on questions that would only go unanswered the moment they left my lips. They would be swallowed up into the fathomless void that was the Urashima Tunnel, just like everything else. Yo, we're reading so fast. So we read like 60 pages, I think. Or 50 pages. There's like, I think it's only 80 pages, not 90. We have like 30 pages left. A year into my first serialization deal, my story finally hit its stride, and I see the broad strokes of where I wanted it to finish out. All I had to do was pile on chapter after gripping chapter, on chapter after gripping chapter, and pepper in enough foreshadowing throughout to make the whole finale the best it could possibly be. Thankfully, I finally gotten the hang of my rigorous publishing schedule. There's no shot. The guy doing kickflips in front of my house is back. What the? Is it? It's like, oh boy, 2 a.m. Time to do kickflips. What the? Alright. Where are we? Thankfully, I finally gotten the hang of my rigorous publishing schedule, and I even had a little bit of free time now. But perhaps, by corollary, this also meant that I spent a lot more time thinking about Kaoru. The hotter months were always the hardest. They remind me of that dreamlike summer when he and I spent nearly every single day together, and we were both each other's worlds entire. Godzilla Skin Pog. Those had been the fullest, most memorable months of my life. Every day, a new thrill, a fresh adventure to discover, yet lately thinking back on it would bring about a sharp pain in my chest, like I'd been stabbed with a knife. Then, the anxiety seeped in through the stab wound to slowly gnaw at my heart. Sorry Artemis, I disable raids for reading streams, but hey Artemis. What if Kaoru had made it out of the Urashima Tunnel a long time ago? What if he was secretly living a new happy life in a better place unbeknownst to me? What if he simply wanted nothing to do with me anymore, and that was why he hadn't attempted to contact me? Eventually, it got to the point where anxiety was so strong, I thought I might bore a hole in my chest. Oh my gosh, is Anzu really waiting for 8 years? Oh my god. Another 2 full years came and went. Want to raid Pushin? Sorry, Pushin is just mine. Only mine, Artemis. My first manga series was finally complete, not discontinued, or truncated in the slightest. I managed to put every bit of the story I wanted to tell on paper. I was also extremely satisfied with how well I'd wrapped things up. It was the exact perfect conclusion I'd envisioned before the story even started publication. The readers seemed to love it too. Yet my depressive funk showed no sign of letting up. Now that I lost my serialized gig, I couldn't coast through life on that alone. It was like I'd been thrown off the rails, tossed back to fend for myself in the jungle at night with no direction on where to go. My editor told me that I should work on submitting a rough draft for a new story concept. That made sense, obviously. As an author, once I finally finished reading one story, it was time to move on to the next. Now I was simply the cycle of being a professional manga artist. Yet, though, I now had full confidence in my abilities as a storyteller. I wasn't completely convinced that this was what I, Anzu Hanashio, the human being, truly wanted. Or to put it more simply, I was lost, unsure of where my life should go next. I don't scam. Artemis might scam though. Cough cough, like scamming mofo. Should I try to go look for Kaoru in earnest, or should I write a new manga? I had to admit, I'd entertained the idea of going to the tunnel and chasing him several times over the years, even despite the massive head start he had by now. Yet every time, I remembered the words in his letter and felt that I owed it to him to really pour my all into my manga career. That, combined with the simple fear of taking on the tunnel and its unknowable nature all by myself, always made me reticent. Plus, like I said, Kaoru had been in the tunnel for quite some time. Probably going on a full day now, by my estimation. One would have thought that would be enough time to make it to the end of any tunnel. Barring supernatural shenanigans. The fact that he was, to the best of my knowledge, still inside seemed to imply that something truly bad had happened. Maybe he'd fallen into some sort of trap and couldn't get out without help, so he was starving to death. Maybe he'd encountered some horrible abomination and been gravely injured. My mind drafted worst case scenarios one after another, and with each what if, my chest grew tighter and tighter. A part of me desperately wanted to rush in and help him. However, every time I stood before that first torii, I got cold feet and froze in place, unable to move a muscle. Hey, Dashin. I was a grown adult. Gone was the invisible teenager I had once been. I had actual responsibilities now, as well as my long-term financial stability and well-being. To think about the thought of putting myself in any sort of danger was pretty terrifying. Even scarier than that, really, was the thought of going in and discovering that Kaoru was nowhere to be found. Like, what if he'd come out the tunnel and left Kozaki behind without saying a word? Then I'd have thrown away all the success I built over the past few years for nothing. I knew that I should give up on Kaoru and try to forget about him. Really, I did. I knew that constantly obsessing over him after 5 whole years was unhealthy, plain and simple. Despite that, I couldn't do it, even with all these years of dashed hopes. Whenever I heard my name, my phone vibrate, part of me couldn't help but wonder if it might be him, every single time. So I languished in agony, unable to go after Kaoru, but unable to move on from him, as the weeks and months piled up like so many sheets of crumpled drawing paper. Since when had I been such a spineless coward? I found myself envying the dauntless girl I'd been in days gone by, who had always been able to maintain an optimistic outlook without effort, without even good reason. The days rolled by one after another, yet still I failed to come up with any decent ideas for my next big manga series. And of course, I still hadn't heard anything from Kaoru. I did receive an invitation to go to lunch with an old friend, one Koharu Kawasaki. We met one day at the old cafe in downtown Kozaki. Hey, Anzu, long time no see, huh? Yeah, no kidding. We hadn't seen each other once since graduation. We did keep in touch via text for a while, but as my career started picking up steam, even that slowly fell by the wayside. And now we hadn't spoken in almost a year. Yeah, that's so relatable. God, no. Seeing Koharu's face again for the first time in so long, I couldn't help but notice how much softer and friendlier her smile had become. She left Kosaku shortly after graduation to get her teaching license at vocational school, and she had apparently scored herself a job teaching elementary school in the city. When Koharu had first told me, way back in high school, that she wanted to be a teacher when she grew up, I had been genuinely taken aback. So taken aback, in fact, that I had almost thought she was pulling my leg. Nevertheless, there she was. She put together a clear-cut plan, followed it through to the end, and was now a full-fledged teacher, just like she'd said she would be. All the disdain I felt towards this one-time bad girl had totally evaporated, and in its place, I felt nothing but genuine respect for her. We quickly set about catching each other up on what was new and exciting in our respective lives, continuing to make casual small talk between bites after our food arrived. Have you been getting enough sleep lately? Koharu asked at one point. Who? Me? Yeah, you got big dark circles under your eyes. Are you really still that busy now that your series is finally over? No, not so much honestly. I've been having trouble falling asleep lately, I guess. Wait, you've got insomnia? Is there something that's been stressing you out a lot lately? Stressing you out a lot? Maybe writer's block or something? Can't come up with new story ideas? Well, yeah, that's part of it too. Hi, Pushin. I'm kidding. But yeah, that's part of it too, but don't tell me it's tonal, isn't it? I was at a loss for words. I really hadn't expected Koharu to be able to see through me so easily. She made a glum expression for whatever reason. I put her elbows on the table and rested her head in her hands. God, where the heck did that guy run off to? She wondered aloud. Who is Pushin? It's the cat right here. Yeah, I step. Artemis, if you attempt to do that, Pushin will be grossed out by you. No, you're not allowed to do that, Artemis. Are you crazy? Yo, I'm not letting you go anywhere near Pushin. For all the complaints I had about Koharu back in high school, she was one of the only people I knew who'd remain concerned about Kaoru's sudden disappearance after graduation. I had to respect her for that. I mean, what kind of loser runs off and leaves a girl like you high and dry, you know? So help me. If I ever see his stupid mug again, I'm gonna sock him right in the kisser. Oh, please do. He deserves it, I said, chuckling. We were in silence for a while after that, enjoying a smooth jazz that's flowed softly from the restaurant's overhead speakers. Hey, Kawasaki? I asked casually as I twirled some pasta around my fork. Artemis, whether Pushin needs a bath or not is none of your business. Me and Pushin, we're friends. You and Pushin, y'all are just... Please don't develop a parasocial relationship between Pushin and you. Hey Kawasaki, I asked casually as I twirled some pasta around my fork. What's up? If I told you I was thinking about completely giving up my manga career to go find him, what would you say? Koharu's hands instantly stopped and her eyes went wide as she looked up at me. Anzu, you're not seriously still in love with that guy, are you? I mean, look, I know it's really not my place to judge, but don't you think this obsession has gone on long enough? I mean, the guy should have vanished on us without giving us a courtesy call. Pretty sure the only way we're ever gonna see him again is if he decides he wants to come back. Blech. Burp. I'm sorry, Artemis. I just have to tell it to you straight. Yes, I appreciate that, but that doesn't make me miss him any less, I replied, raising my voice a little bit. I was dead serious. The only problem was that, to me, my manga was almost exactly as important as he was. I mean, do you really have to pick one or the other here? Can you go looking for him while continuing to write manga? No, absolutely not. All that will do is keep me from devoting the proper time and energy to either. No one ever got anywhere by being indecisive. Koharu furrowed her eyebrows with concern. Are you sure you're not burnt out, Anzu? Maybe you should take a little time off. You think it's over with a fresh mind. I can't do that, I shouted. finally pushed over the edge. I can't stop running. I can't even slow down. If I do, the anxiety will catch up with me, and once it does, it'll make everything around me go dark, and I won't be able to see or think straight. That's what terrifies me the most. If I'm not doing something to keep my mind occupied, I get paralyzed by all these intrusive thoughts. But I guess it doesn't really make a difference, because when I do make up my mind to do something, I always end up second-guessing myself anyway, wondering if it's really the right choice. I hung my head, covering my forehead with both hands, and implored, "Tell me, Kawasaki, what am I supposed to do?" I knew she wouldn't have any answers. However, now that the lid was off, I couldn't help but let all the emotions I bottled over the years gush out at once. Kaoru took a long, unwieldy sip of water before attempting. Attempting to respond. Sorry, Anzu, if I really couldn't tell you. That's not for me to decide. Eggy, get away from me. And Fushin. I know, sorry. Didn't mean to kill the mood. Don't worry about it. I smiled awkwardly in a futile attempt to mediate my embarrassment and then went back to eating my pasta. It was supposedly the most popular item on the menu. Yeah, at present, it tasted like flavorless sludge. Like nothing at all. But you know what? This kind of takes me back to an old conversation we had, Koharu said, her expression abruptly turning wistful. Remember in high school when you punched me in the face? Then things got a little out of hand and you guys came over to my place to drop off my summer homework. I remember telling you that I want to learn to be just like you. Do you know what you said to me? I didn't respond, so after a short pause, she continued. You said that at the end of the day, there's no one right way to live our lives. All we can do is pick a path and run it down as fast as we can see how far we can get in the time that's given to us. That sounds very similar to how you have to run down, how Kaoru's running down through the torii gates in the tunnel to find what he has lost. Or at least I'm pretty sure that was it. Maybe I got the wording a little jumbled, but I still remember it plain as day. All of a sudden, Koharu's lips widened in a broad and all-encompassing smile. Those words changed my life, you know. So I figured that if you follow your convictions and stick to the path your gut tells you to, then maybe, just maybe, things will work out the way you want it in the end, just like they did for me. Koharu's words rang in my ears, then it slowly permeated throughout my body. Have a good one, Artemis. Driving by. Get wrecked, Iggy. Deep in my chest, I felt a warmth, as though magma was bubbling up from the bottom of my weary heart, dissolving all the clouded dregs of anxiety that had built up inside it over the years. I felt a kind of exhilarating energy return to every corner of my body, one that I hadn't felt in ages. I knew exactly what this strange feeling was, because it was one I used to know, one I used to call my own. Once upon a time, it was courage. It was fearlessness. I mean, granted, all I'm really doing here is handing you your own advice back to you. I still have no idea what I'd recommend, but wait, Anzu, are you okay? I hadn't noticed, but tears were streaming down my cheeks. Kawasaki? Yeah? I think you must be misremembering. I'm pretty sure I never said anything that cool, or embellishing an awful lot. Huh? You think? Oh god, that's embarrassing. Sorry, it's just been so long and... No, it's fine. I appreciate it. I dabbed my eyes with one of the warm moist towels the server had brought to the table. How had I not realized any of this before? It was all stuff that I was supposed to know, but somewhere along the way, I'd apparently lost sight of it all. God, I'm so stupid. It was like someone had flipped the switch. Now my eyes were wide open, and I could see the road ahead once more. I grabbed my plate of food and raised it to my chin, then proceeded to shovel the remaining pasta directly into my mouth. Okay, just 4 more pages left, and I'll take a small break. And then we'll read the last chapter. Anzu, what's got into you all of a sudden? Here, I'll pay the bill. I pulled a 10,000 yen bill from my wallet and slammed it on the table before dashing out of the cafe. Mouth still filled to the brim with pasta. I couldn't afford to stay there a minute longer, because I finally realized something crucial. Simply waiting around wasn't ever going to get me anywhere. However, I was about to give up on Kaoru or my manga aspirations. I couldn't possibly pick between the two. I just had to find a way to claim them both. Get wrecked, Iggy. I would take on the Urashima Tunnel if I didn't find Kaoru there. I'd search the whole wide world if I had to, and like Koharu said, I would keep drawing manga while I looked for him. So long as I drew breath, nothing could stop me from drawing manga if I truly wanted it badly enough. Yes, I knew this greedy decision very well could give me nothing but heartbreak. A hunter who chases two rabbits at once catches none, as they said, but if you felt you had no choice but to go after both rabbits, there was simply no other option. You had to learn to multitask. Perhaps more importantly, you sure as hell weren't going to catch anything by staying still and hesitating. It wouldn't be a cold day in hell before I let that happen. Every fiber of my being was telling me the exact same thing. Run. Chase after him as fast as you possibly can. I felt a rush of hot blood swirling around in my head, and a jumbled mess of memories flashed before my eyes like slides from an overhead projector. The day I trained to Kozaki High, the day I got in a fistfight with that senior thug, the first time I ever followed Kaoru down the train tracks, the day Kaoru and I saw our differences, the day Kaoru and I first held hands inside the tunnel, the night we all went to the festival together, the day he up and vanished without a word, every time I'd spent with him during that fleeting, still unending summer propelled me forward, pushing my legs as fast as they could go as I kicked myself for having ever waited so long. Are you listening, Tono-kun? Because I'm on my way, and I'm going to find you. I'll run as fast as I can. I'll track you down to the ends of the earth if I have to. So please, promise me you'll stay safe until I get there. I'm coming. It had been 5 long years since Kaoru entered the Urashima Tunnel. It was finally time to run in there and take back what was mine. Anashiro. Wait, let me drink some water before this. Hanashiro. Over and over again, I called her name as I ran through the tunnel, screaming it in my head even after my throat was too hoarse to make a sound. My entire body was on fire. I felt blood coursing through each individual finger. My heart called on every last cell in my body, pounding harder and harder to spur them into action. Hanashiro. I barreled into a sharp turn around the next corner, pushing the grip on the soles of my shoes to the absolute limit. I refused to slow down for an instant. The air whooshed like a wind front past my eardrums as I made this intense change of momentum, then passed through that wall and proceeded at top speed down the next passage. Hanashiro. Rationally speaking, my muscles should have been long since given out, yet they continued to confer their blessings, urging me to incessantly, ever faster, ever onward. Hanashiro, you must be so much older and more mature by now. Do you still remember that fateful summer we spent together in high school? You know, it's funny. Do you think back on how awkward our first interaction was? I said something really inconsiderate that any person but you would have been offended by. Yet, for whatever reason, it just so happened to pique your interest so much that you followed me all the way into the Urashima Tunnel, where we had our first real exchange. From that point on, we were partners who showed an exciting secret, and that over the course of our investigation, I got to know you pretty damn well. You had so many of the things I'd always wanted, so many of the things I lacked. You told me once that you really looked up to me, but from my perspective, I've always been the one looking up to you. You gave off a radiant glow like no one I'd ever known. With your intelligent grace, your brutal honesty, and all your adorable little quirks, you brought a splash of vibrant color to my dreary, monochrome world for the first time in forever. That's why I could never forget you. Even if you've moved on with your life and forgotten about me, I'll never, ever forget you, or those days we spent running like the wind beneath the hot summer sun. You were still only 17 then, so it probably feels a world away by now. But for me, it's still crystal clear. I'll always remember those days and keep our memories close to. All of a sudden, I felt like a crunching in my leg as they gave out. Apparently, I finally hit my limit, and I fell right at the top of a steep downward incline. I had to brace myself for impact. I couldn't. There was no time. Aw, shoot. Before I could raise my arms high enough to protect my face, they took the brunt of the impact with the ground, and a searing pain shot through my wrist. Yet, that alone was near enough to stop the momentum, and I did a full rotation in midair before crashing hard on my back. The fall knocked every last breath of wind from my lungs, and all I could do was let out a pathetic, breathy cough. Even still, I kept rolling downward, my battered body crashing repeatedly against it. I snapped in my brain, and as the last cord was cut, and my mind finally let go. Oh, it's just called Final Chapter, and this... Dang. This is the final artwork for the final chapter. Yo. I'm so emotional right now. What the? Like, for reference, so this is what I'm assuming this is Anzu, and this is Kaoru. So for reference, this is what they look like. So Kaoru is obviously the same because it's only been like 30 hours or 50 hours or however long it's been for him. For who is it? For Anzu, it's been 8 years, so that's why she changed her style, has short hair, looks older. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go close the window and just stretch a bit before I read the last chapter, use the restroom, do some stuff. Oh my gosh. I really like this book, actually. I really like this book. It's very nice, even though I feel like it's a bit unrealistic, and or the characters' personalities, things kind of unrealistic and very wishful, but it's very cute. All right, BRB. Testing my voice. Okay, I think that's a bit quiet. Hello, hello, hello. Testing my voice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe a bit higher. Alright. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, there we go. Heyo. That took a bit longer than I thought. There's a freaking silverfish in my bathroom, and I had to Thanos snap. Okay, ants and silverfish are the only thing that I'm too lazy to let live, and I Thanos snap them. Ants, it depends. If it's not an infestation, I don't mind. Silverfish, you mean you're what? Mofo, I'ma smack you. Was it an actual fish? Oh no, it's a bug. So put it back in the ocean. Oh my gosh. Silverfish are like bugs. Actually, what are they? Let me search up. Yeah, they're insects. Yeah, they're insects. Y'all don't have that? Y'all might have that. I don't know. I mean, the silverfish, they're in Minecraft. It's just that. Yeah, wait, there's a lot in my house. Or, I mean, it's not uncommon you see them in my house, like, once a month. Oh, y'all don't? Dang. You're saying Australia has some big silverfish. Oh, they don't fly? They're really small. They actually look kind of cute. They're really small. They're like, They're like way thinner than my freaking finger. How small are they? They're like this small. Like, do you see through this hole? They're like this small. I do adopt it? No. Get out of here. Look at the Google image are zoomed in. Well, power and Gmofo. There's no way, dude. I'm not doing that sign, okay? I'm not doing the sign, okay? I'm not doing that sign. Alright, let's finish this book. This book's been great. Damn, what time is it? It's 3. Oh, that's what I get for starting late. Holy moly. What's currently whatever, Iggy. Ooh? No, I'm kidding. Alright, let's finish reading this book. Shoot, are you gonna have time to talk about this book after? I'll talk about it after. We're regular in thumb wrestling? I guess since I can definitely read this. Yeah, I can definitely finish this. Yeah, I can talk about it. So up on my thumb, like it's literally just me. So I haven't rode a bike in a while. I think the way I gripped it, because of the friction, of the whack grip that I did, my skin started peeling off of my thumb here. Cause it was like this, and it was like this from underneath. So it just started peeling off a bit. I didn't even notice until like when I got back from dance practice. But it's not, it doesn't really hurt that much anymore. But I just put a band-aid over it. I'm gonna take off this band-aid after stream. I just put a band-aid over it because I just don't want y'all to see like the bright red spot while reading, because it'll look kind of weird. Getting the gritty word. Okay, that's true. So I just put it over here so that y'all don't have to like see that ugly spot on my thumb. Hold on for deliver runs bike. Oh, whatever, dude. Honestly, the ride back from my bike was so hard. It was so tiring. Yo, I DM'd you about it, Nasty. Even though it wasn't meant for you, you read it. It was tiring. Riding that bike home from dance practice, I couldn't. I was dying. Come on, don't look at me like that, Nasty. Dance? What do you mean dance? Oh, because of dance practice, yeah. I'm just dancing for the... Or, I'm just practicing dancing for the festival here. You never sent it to me, Lofi? Sorry, Iggy. I don't want to show you. I don't want to show you my bad side, Iggy. That's why. I only want to show you the good sides of me. That's why I never TM you, because there's no good sides of me. All right. Dude, okay, Mofu. Even though I laugh, you're not allowed to laugh at that, Mofu. I'm gonna smack you. Alright, everyone, shut up. I don't want anyone to talk. Don't want to read the final chapter? Then, yep. Mobile bad RNG. Alright. Thanks, Eggy. Alright, we're gonna read this now. This looks so adorable. Final chapter. There's the art for it. Okay, I said shut up, okay? I'm smacking both you and both and Eggy. Okay. I was floating, set adrift into a deep, fathomless pool of darkness. I was hard and heavy as though I'd been buried alive in a coffin full of liquid cement. My whole body lay rigid, suspending in space with only my consciousness swirling languidly around it. I couldn't cry out for help or turn my head or lift a single finger. All I could feel was a creeping cold slowly slithering up my legs. I was afraid. I was confused. My mind tried desperately to wriggle free from its clutches. I screamed within, though it made no sound. Then I saw it, a tiny pinprick of light piercing the darkness. Suddenly, I regained some small amount of control over my body. I reached for the light with heavy limbs, trying my hardest to claw through the darkness. At first, it was like treading water, paddling hopelessly in the middle of an open ocean, with no chance of making it to shore. Eventually, the light began to grow brighter and brighter, and I could just make out the silhouette of a person. Standing directly in front of it, it looked like a woman, but the light behind her was too blinding to make out her face. The closer I got though, the more defined her contours became. She was saying something, but I couldn't quite make it out from this distance. It sounded like a droning hum, yet for whatever reason it soothed my ears. Like the voice of an old friend I hadn't seen in years and missed more than the world could ever know. I kept swimming through the liquid darkness, slowly but surely, closing the distance between myself and the shadowy figure. When I was finally within arm's length, I reached for her. Oh no, Tono-kun, I heard a voice. Tono-kun, Tono-kun. It was calling my name over and over like a desperate, tearful plea. Tono-kun. A water droplet plinked onto my cheek, and I opened my eyes. A woman was looking down at me with tears on her face. She was so close that I couldn't help but squirm in surprise. However, she had apparently rested my head on her lap. She held one of my hands clasped in both of hers and rubbed it gently against her cheek. She looked a lot like Anzu, only her hair was much shorter, and she looked quite a bit older than the girl I remembered. If you told me she was Anzu's older sister or something, however, I would have believed you without batting an eye. How was she crying? What was she doing in here in the first place? As far as I could remember, I was still steep inside the Urashima tunnel. Tono-kun, are you okay? Do you recognize me? It's me, Hanashiro, Anzu Hanashiro. Anzu Hanashiro? Hanashiro? What are you doing here? I shouted, sitting up in a fluster. The sudden motion gave me a throbbing headache, and I clutched my forehead in a vain attempt to quell the migraine. When I did this, the little flakes of dried blood fluttered from the tips of my bangs. Startled, the woman immediately let go of my hand and grabbed my shoulder to gently prop me up. No, don't. You really shouldn't move around too much yet. You're in pretty bad shape. Oh, okay. Anzu helped me sit so that we were directly across from each other on the ground. I stared at her, closely examining her facial features. As she looked me over in turn, clearly concerned about my current state of health. Are you sure you're okay? Does your head hurt? You don't feel sick or anything? Yeah, I think I hit my head a little too hard. I'm not bleeding anymore, it doesn't look like. And I don't feel nauseous or anything. I'm pretty sure I'll be alright. You're sure? Oh, thank goodness. Anzu placed her hand on her chest and she let out a sigh of deep relief. I, meanwhile, was still extremely confused. Part of me was convinced I had to be dreaming. So you're really Hanashiro, huh? Then what are you doing here? What am I doing here? Isn't it obvious? Anzu's eyes shot wide open and she raised a clenched fist to shoulder level. She held it shakily aloft for a good few seconds, as though she wasn't sure where to punch me, before ultimately slamming it flaccidly into my chest. It didn't hurt, but there was a weight to it that confirmed once and for all that it was more than just a dream. Then, before I knew it, she threw her arms around my neck, wrapping me tight in her embrace, her damp, silky hair against my cheek, a scent of precipitation tickling my nose. Wait, precipitation? Precipitation tickling my nose. Man, I feel so lonely right now. That's really cute. I'm here to bring you back because you were taking too long, you moron, she yelled. Her face was so close to mine that it made my eardrum ring. I didn't mind one bit. What? But I thought for sure you chose to pursue being a manga. I did, and I am one. Then why the hell are you? Because I finished already. I wrote a whole damn series and it's out in paperback and everything. I didn't rush to the conclusion either. I tied up every loose end, but even then you still hadn't come out. So I got sick and tired of waiting, and now I'm here to drag your sorry butt back with me. Is that so wrong? I'm a smack you, mofo. I was stunned, utterly at a loss for words. Not only had Anju's story been picked up for serialization, but she'd finished the whole thing and it was even out in trade paperbacks. She accomplished all that while I was running around the tunnel for just a day or two. Holy crap. I hate you guys. I honestly couldn't believe my ears. There are things the average person never accomplished in their entire lifetime. Then to top it all off, she'd cast everything aside to come chasing after me into the tunnel. All by herself. Whatever, dude. And another thing, Nansu tightened her stranglehold on my neck. Why would you ever write that you don't expect me to wait for you? I can't believe you. We were supposed to be a team, remember? How could you just leave me behind all alone? Was it really so wrong that I got cold feet about that first editing offer? Is that why you abandoned me? Is that why you wouldn't let me come with you? No, it's nothing like that. Wow. I don't know how to make a crying noise. Wow. I'm sorry, okay? Please don't hate me. I don't want to be alone anymore. Wah. Wait, that's really bad. I don't know, make a crying noise. With her head over my right shoulder, her tears soaked through the fabric of my shirt. She dug her nails so deep into my back, I actually thought she might draw blood. All I could do was make it up to her was gently run my fingers through her hair. I'm sorry, I know I put you through an awful lot. You didn't deserve that. Yeah, if you think I'm gonna let you off easy, you're dead wrong, she said, still sniffing uncontrollably. I swear, if you ever run off on me again. I know. But don't worry, I'll never leave you behind again. From now on, we're gonna go the distance together. Shoot, I'm so sorry, the version is gone. Okay. You promise? I took Anzu by the shoulder and pulled her head away from my shoulder so I could look her in the eye. Her face was drenched with tears, sweat, and snot. Even so, it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I took a deep breath, then brought my face close to hers and took her lips in mine. God dang it, I'm so lonely. I went in so fast that our teeth knocked awkwardly together, but she didn't seem to mind, so I decided to lean into it. It lasted all of 5 seconds and cost us another several hours, but it was worth every minute. Finally, I pulled my face away. I'd never kissed anyone before. The slight taste of salt. Salt! Wait, kissing is salty? Hey, yo! Shoot, okay, no, I need to focus on the story. I'm so sorry, guys. Lingered for a good while on my lips. I stood and extended a hand to Anzu, who was still in a bit of a daze after that. Come on, partner. Let's go home. I assume it was when he may never wiped off the sand from his face when he fell down, or it's because of the blood, but I don't think that tastes salty. Oh wait, no, is it because of the snot? Oh, tears are salty. Yo, I'm trolling. You're right, Wolfo. Okay, go ahead. Shoot, I need to ignore you guys. Okay, I need to focus on the story. I'm so sorry. Okay. 47 hours, 46 minutes. That was the total amount of time I spent inside the Hiroshima tunnel. When converted to real world time, that came out to 13 years and 45 days. Holy heck. My body was still 17, but from a legal standpoint, I was a 30-year-old man. Anzu, meanwhile, had waited 5 whole years before entering the town to come after me, and thus was a fully grown 22-year-old woman. What? So she lost 7 years and Kaoru lost 13? What? When we finally did emerge from the Hiroshima tunnel, we were greeted by the most beautiful September sunset you could ever imagine. Even when we made it to the main road, I really didn't feel like I'd been gone for 13 years. Kozaki was every bit the sleepy little seaside community had always been. And even Kozaki High, which I always figured would be demolished and consolidated into one of the bigger nearby high schools before long, still stood tall and proud over the town. Probably the most surprising thing was the newfangled types of phones I saw people playing with on the train. They were all tip-tapping around the screens with their bare hands, and I had to wonder how the glass didn't constantly get smudged with fingerprints. Since I was still in pretty bad shape from running around and getting all beat up in the tunnel, we stepped into a random clothing store along the way to get me a fresh outfit. Then checked into a cheap business hotel in the city. We took turns using the shower for an unassuming twin room, then sat on our beds and talked about anything and everything that had happened since we saw each other last. I told her about the crazy things I'd seen in the Hiroshima tunnel, and how I really had managed to reunite with my little sister, if only for a little while. She told me about her new life and what it was like being a serialized manga creator. We spoke animatedly for hours on end and quickly lost track of time. Before we knew it, it was well past midnight eventually. We got to the subject where exactly we saw ourselves going from here. I'm gonna keep writing manga, Anzu assertively declared. I'll rent a condo or something and pour everything I can into making my big comeback. I figure I got enough money left to keep myself fed for another 2 years or so while I come up with something. And it's really the only thing I'm good at, so yeah. Hey, sounds good to me. Not that I'd have any right to tell you otherwise. What about you, Tono-kun? What are you going to do now? I floundered at this, mainly because I had literally no plan of action. I honestly hadn't given much thought to what might happen after I left the Hiroshima tunnel. I had been too preoccupied with seeing Kanen again, so I kind of just shrugged it off and told myself I could surely find some way to make a living if only I worked hard enough. Anzu putting my carelessness under a microscope made me feel like the most pathetic moron alive. Even so, I had no intention of lying to her. Sorry. I really haven't given it much thought, I answered honestly. I know I'm going to have to find a job of some sort, obviously. Anzu shot me a concerned look, then started rubbing her chin between her fingers. But you're supposed to be 30, as far as the government's concerned, right? I mean, the same can be said for me, obviously, but I feel like it'll be pretty tough to find stable employment with a 13-year gap on your record, especially when you didn't get your high school diploma. She was extremely correct. So correct, in fact, that my heart sank to the pit of my stomach. Just as I opened my mouth to assure her I'd find a way regardless, she cut me off in a loud and declarative voice. Speaking of which, I've been thinking about moving to Tokyo. Wait, seriously? Yeah, it's just more convenient for someone in my industry when you can be there in person for things. I've also been thinking about hiring an assistant. Oh, what kind of assistant? Ideally, someone who could help me draw your light to my low, adding half-tone shading, filling in all black areas, maybe drawing some simple backgrounds if possible, that sort of thing. Kaoru is so goddamn lucky. I honestly wasn't sure I was capable of doing even that much. I'd only taken 2 or 3 semesters of art class, and I really didn't have an artistic bone in my body. I wondered how simple these backgrounds she envisioned were supposed to be. If we're just like sandy beaches or scorched black plains or something, maybe I could manage, but no, there was no way. As I mulled over what I might actually be capable of, Anzu giggled and let herself fall backward onto the bed. On the other hand, it might be more useful to have an emotional support person who could help me out around the house. Yo, this is what I'm talking. Okay, wait, I'll save this at the end. I'll finish the book first. Someone who could give me pep talks or feedback when I'm feeling down or in a creative rut, and be my living assistant 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. You wouldn't happen to know anyone who might fit the bill, would you? Oh, so that's your game, eh? Finally reading between the lines, I got up and sat right next to Anzu on the other bed, lifting her off the mattress with both arms. Well, if you think I'm a qualified candidate, I'd be more than happy to help out. You sure you don't mind me being with an aging 22-year-old like me? I mean, I probably got one foot in the grave, she joked. You kidding? I've always had a thing for older women. Wait, really? Nah, just you. Nah, God, you're so full of it, always have been. Oh, you think so too, huh? You think so, huh? Why, yes, I do, actually. The conversation died off, and for a good long moment, we simply stared deep into each other's eyes. Just when I thought the mood might be right, she grabbed a pillow and swung it hard into my face. I fell backward, and she proceeded to pounce on me and playfully smother with it. I'm sorry, I can't. That was so cringy, I'm dying. Oh, now you've done it. I'm so lonely. I grabbed the other pillow and threw it at her in retaliation, but she snatched it right out of the air and came back for more, pummeling me relentlessly with pillows in both hands. I was laughing so hard, it was all I could do. It was all I could do to shield my face from the assault. Anzu and I went on fooling around until our sides were as sore as our bodies had already been, then crashed into bed together, thoroughly exhausted after what had happened, what had probably been the single longest day in history. As you can see, I'm so lonely. Eggy, I'm gonna smack you. Several days after we emerged from the Hiroshima tunnel, it was finally starting to feel like we were getting into the swing of things. I'm just kidding though. After filing some short form paperwork, we were officially approved to lease a unit in a pretty nice condominium in the Tokyo suburbs. We're still living in Kozaki for the time being, but we've been assigned a room number and plan to move the next day. Anzu read new manga every day and brainstormed so she could start working toward her big comeback. It had been 8 years since her last series concluded, so she really had to catch up with the times and modern trends if she wanted to compete with the big names in the industry. Meanwhile, I'd read all the way through her previous work, which I've been eagerly looking forward to the entire time I was in the tunnel. When she handed me the physical copy of Volume 1, I couldn't believe I was actually holding it in my hand. Though once I got to reading, it was the story itself that I found truly unbelievable. No, Eggy, we're so close to the end. No, it's okay. Have a good one, Eggy. Bye. I'm sorry for taking so long reading. It's 3:22. Oh lord, oh god. Anzu's artistic and storytelling abilities had grown light years beyond that first amateur manga she let me read in her old bedroom. Though it seemed there were some things that hadn't changed, because when I gave her my rave review, she went tomato red from ear to ear, just like she had in high school. Speaking of high school, we met up with Koharu and Shohei the day before. After Anzu and I had invited them out for lunch, they were both grown adults by now, obviously, and quite a bit older than Anzu. When they first walked in and saw me, and changed from the day they last laid eyes on me, sure looked like he'd seen a ghost while Koharu started crying. They ran up and punched me in the shoulder. She seemed genuinely a little pissed as she demanded to know where the hell I'd been all this time. And I explained things as honestly and clearly as I could. When I finally finished, Shohei was the first to speak up. You know, as much as I'd like to call you on it and say you must have been having some crazy fever dream or something, just looking at you guys, it's pretty hard to deny that something out of this world must have happened to you. But hey, you're back now, right? That's all that really matters. God, do you guys have any idea how worried I was? Well, I couldn't. I mean, first you up and vanish on us without word, and then I lose Anzu too. But yes, I'm very glad you're both with us now. After that, the four of us proceeded to wax nostalgic about our high school days and get caught up with what was going on in each of our lives, all while slowly picking away at serving after serving of okonomiyaki. Shohei and Koharu were both officially in their 30s, and they were living out respectable lives with respectable careers. Shohei worked for a real estate firm in town, while Koharu was an elementary school teacher. Of course, I already knew these things from my discussions with Anzu, but I couldn't conceal my surprise upon hearing it straight from the source, especially when it came to Koharu. There really was no telling how a person might turn out. You know, it seems like you changed a bit, man, Shohei said, pulling me aside as Anzu and Koharu were busy chatting it up about something or other. I mean, not in the looks department, obviously, but I feel like you've definitely got some big man on campus energy. Like you're gonna do you and don't give a damn what anyone else might think. Yeah, well, I've been kind of through a lot these past few days, haha. God, I love to see Kawasaki try to extort your money now, but you just told her to screw herself and walk away. Hey, he's not the one who's matured here, you know? Kaoru put it in, and we all started laughing. Hey, at least you finally found purpose in your life, my man, Shoei went on. Hell, plenty of folks our age still have trouble with that, so don't ever lose sight of it, alright? Keep that backbone straight, you hear me? Thanks, man, I definitely will, but hell, you sure pay close attention to me. You know what? You'd make a great therapist. Well, yeah, analyzing people's psychologies is kind of a hobby of mine. You know that though, didn't you? I couldn't help but smile at this exchange. It really was a blast from the past. Right, how could I ever forget? When he finally ran out of things like to talk about, Shohei mentioned offhand that he'd like to see the so-called Urashima tunnel for himself, so as soon as we finished our meal, we all headed there to take a look. However, the tunnel was gone. All that student's place was a flat wall of rocks, almost like it had never been there all at all. Okay, you guys, come on, what gives? Shohei demanded impatiently. I could only really shrug my shoulders. Who knows? Maybe it really was a fever dream after all. All four of us couldn't help but feel like we've been bamboozled. After saying our goodbye to Shohei and Koharu, Anzu and I set off towards our next destination. We hopped off the train and headed down the road that ran alongside the train tracks. After passing by a closed-down rice dealer and the old fire station, its doors still shuttered to this day, we arrived at our destination. It was my house, or rather, the house I used to call my home. We walked right past the big no trespassing sign and up to the front door. The locks hasn't been changed, thankfully, so I was still able to let myself inside. I'd heard from Joy that my father had long since moved away from Kozaki, but had been unable to find a buyer for our old house, so now it just stood there, slowly withering away. It didn't surprise me that he'd been unable to sell his place. It was an old wooden house that would need a lot of renovations. I wouldn't have been shocked to see it demolished by the next time I came back to look at it. Hey Faye, we're almost done reading, so I'll be focused on reading till the end, and then I'll be chatting a bit before ending the stream because it's getting late. But hey Faye. Sorry for the intrusion, Anju said politely, as she walked in the front door behind me. Obviously, there was no one living within who might respond or care. It was still broad daylight outside, yet the house's interior was surprisingly dark due to the shutter on the windows and screen doors. We walked over creaky floorboards down the hall as such rich smell of dusty hardwood filled our lungs. We made our way up the stairs. The reading's been... yeah, the book's... I really like the book. I can't wait for the movie. Taking care not to get caught in any of the spider webs hanging from the ceiling, but it's tiring. I think it's at 80 pages that we've read, or 85 pages. I don't know, but oh my gosh. We're reading 85 pages today, and we're almost done. There's like 5 more pages left. And arrived at my bedroom door. I reached out and opened it. Nothing left, huh? Nansu muttered to herself. The place had indeed been stripped clean of all its personal effects. Though, I had to admit, it did feel surprisingly roomy without my bed and writing desk taking up so much space. Anzu, however, quickly slumped her shoulders in defeat. It had been her idea to come here in the first place. She wanted to see if there were any childhood mementos that we might be able to salvage. I assumed that she had been hoping to at least find an old photo album or something. Well, you can't say I didn't warn you in advance. I had a feeling my dad would have cleaned the place out. Yeah, but you'd think there'd be something left. So what now? You want to check the other rooms too, just in case? Anzu shook her head. No. I'll admit defeat. If they were this thorough in cleaning out your room, I highly doubt we'll find anything interesting in any of the others. And I feel weird rummaging through stuff that isn't even yours. Let's go home. I nodded, and we headed back down the stairs. Just as I got done putting my shoes on in the entryway, I remembered something important. Oh yeah, that reminds me. There's something we should grab before we go. What's that? Come here, I'll show you. We head out the front door and circle around to the backyard. I quickly found a familiar gap in the crawl space and reached my hand inside. My fingers touched something cold and metallic. Thank God, it's still here. I pulled it out and wiped the dust from the lid of the old rectangular tin. Anzu looked at this box of treasures in wonder, as if she could already tell how valuable it was to me. What's that? It's where I keep every memento I still have of my little sister. Upon hearing this, Hanzu's face went pale for a split second, but she quickly collected herself. Oh, wow, she whispered softly, a tone of reverence in her voice. I'm pretty sure I've got a few old photos of me in here too, though I only really set aside the ones that were with me and Kana together, obviously. I lifted the lid off the tin and was greeted by the sight of the heel straps of Kanan's bright red sandals. On top of them, however, there lay an envelope, one I'd never seen before. Oh, what's this? If this is from the dad, I'm gonna be so sad. It was a plain old manila envelope with nothing written on it whatsoever. I had no recollection of ever putting anything like it in there. It has nothing in it? Oh wait, the envelope doesn't have anything in it. Tilting my head with curiosity, I opened it and peeked inside. It contained only a single sheet of folded notebook paper. I pulled it out and opened it. The only thing written on it were an address and phone number I didn't recognize, and at the very bottom of the page, my father's name. Wait. I could only assume that this was my father's new address and phone number. Had he really known about my treasure box all this time? Or maybe he found it after I left the Urashima tunnel. Either way, he saw know about his own metal box and deliberately chose not to throw it away, opting instead to leave his new contact information inside in case I should ever come to retrieve it. Of that much I could be certain. A twinge ran through my chest. God damn it. I thought I was supposed to be over this crap. Is that your father's address? Anzu asked, her voice full of concern. Yeah, looks like it. What are we gonna do with it? Let's bring it home with us. You never know. Maybe there will come a time when I'm ready to face him again. I caught myself thinking of that if that ever came to pass. It would be nice if I could talk amicably with him again, just like old times. I bit my lip with chagrin at the realization that even after all this time, somewhere deep down, I still held hope for a decent relationship with him. Then all of a sudden, Anzu grasped me by the arm. It was too much for you alone. You know I'd always go with you, right? She offered, flashing me that perfect, fearless smile of hers. Yeah, I'd like that. Smiling right back, with the treasure box tucked under one arm and Anzu on the other, I left the old ramshackle house behind. A gust of wind? Oh, that's it. Shook the power lines overhead, and an icy chill crept up the back of my neck. As I shivered from the cold, I realized for the first time that I hadn't heard any cicadas chirping in a good while. It seemed that after 13 years of summer, Anzu and I were finally ready to greet the fall together. I never thought I'd be sad to see it go, but I couldn't be too upset, because I knew another unforgettable summer was waiting just around the bend. Oh. That's a good book. I enjoyed it. My voice is so dead. Oh gosh, I'll read it afterward. It's just 2 pages, right? It's 3 pages, yeah. Oh. Alright, afterward I know I'll talk about the book for a bit. I've always wanted to write a good solid novel. Not necessarily one that will stick with people throughout their entire lives or change their entire worldview. Or that people will still be talking about it in a literature class 200 years from now, mind you. Just a plain old compelling narrative with a magnetic world and characters that can draw readers in and make them forget all of their real world woes, regrets, jealousies, or whatever else might be irritating them at that particular moment. A real page turner that by the time people reach the ending will make them look up at the clock and be amazed by how many hours flew by without them even noticing. Okay, it took us like a freaking month to read this book, or 2 months. Keck W. Almost like the book itself had the capacity to slow the flow of time for the reader, even as the outside world continues being on by, kind of like the Urashima effect. That's one thing that all the best novels have in common, if you ask me. I spent many a night mulling endlessly over thoughts like this, like a rambling drunkard who can't hold his liquor nearly as well as he thinks he can. But if this, my very first ever novel, managed to pull you in like I've just described, I think that would be the greatest reward that I, as an author, could ever ask for. Not to imply that I could ever have done this alone, however. To my editor, Hamada-sensei, thank you for all this laser-focused advice you gave me back when I didn't know the first thing about being a professional writer. I can tell how grateful I am to have an editor who's as passionate about my story as I am. To extremely talented Kuka-sensei, who provided the beautiful art for this book, which I have first laid eyes upon your jaw-dropping cover illustration. I remember I froze in place and thought to myself, wow, now I really need to make a story that lives up to this artwork. It was so stunning. It legitimately took my breath away. To the guest examiner on the judges panel, Asai Labo-sensei, your written notes about my original manuscript were so in-depth, I felt like they gave me my first proper glimpse into the world of being a professional author. I will endeavor to continue writing novels in a way that will not bring shame to your glowing endorsement on the cover of this book. To my dear older sister, thank you for always lending me an ear whenever I need advice or a sanity check. You were my first fan and my first critic, long before I submitted any writing to anyone else. And it was much appreciated. I pray you always remain in sound health and mind for the rest of your days. And to my past self, who had always dreamed of being an author someday, all those long days you spent writing, pouring your heart and soul onto the page as impatience and regret over your life choices slowly crept up on you, they finally paid off here, in this book. Sure, you had to take a fair few detours and make a whole lot of mistakes to get here, but just look, it wasn't all for nothing. Now was it? Thanks for never giving up on your dreams. Finally, I'd like to thank all the other people who had a hand in bringing this book to life. Aside from those few whose name I've written above, I'm sorry I don't have all the space in the world to thank each and every one of you. Please know that you will forever have my undying gratitude for our equally important contributions. On that note, dear reader, I leave you until we meet again. Mei Hachimoku, 2019. The book got translated into English this year, like a few months ago. But the book itself was written in 2019. And yeah. About the author, Mei Hachimoku. Born in 1994, Kansai resident. Wandering through life with a whole lot of purpose but absolutely zero sense of direction. No clue where the hell I'm going anymore, or where I might end up. Just got focused on keeping the lights on for now, I guess. About the artist, Kuka. Born in 1995, Goto Island native. Huge fan of all types of rodents, but hamsters most of all. Matcha flavored desserts are my lifeblood. And that's it.